Jack Bro. Jack Bros?
Any hope of ever returning.
I'm sorry, I'm not playing a game called Jack Bros. Hey yo,
it was a first for the last
take this game to church, your pastor won't be mad. No, pastor, I'm trying to free Jerusalem from the demons. You don't understand. I'm the only survivor. Hold on, let me put some skill points into luck. Have you seen the Metaphor trailers? It's the next Atlus game after Reload. Yeah. If you want to see an initial reaction, it's on the channel right now. Just search Metaphor reaction and it should pop up. But yeah, I'm really interested in that game.
So why is the series mainly referred to as Shin Megami Tensei, at least in the West? Well, it was a chance for the developers to do what they wanted with the series and put their own brand on it. To many of the developers, it was almost seen as a remake of Megami Tensei 2, making its scenario much easier to write. And that's reflected in the title. Shin Megami Tensei translates to true reincarnation of the goddess, as it is their true vision of the series.
True reincarnation of the goddess? I did not know.
It can also mean new, and is often used to denote a remake or reboot. It's why Japan's Godzilla reboot was titled Shin Godzilla, and why Nintendo has a tendency to stick new in front of a bunch of games and systems. The idea fits, as while there
why is the video sped up? Because it's 2 hours long, and I want to like get all the information in without watching 2 hours of content. If you want me to slow it down, I'm fine doing that, but there's just a lot of.
Meanwhile, a scientist has opened a portal to the demon world, causing demons to infest the city. This in turn,
like, I can understand it just fine, but if you want me to slow it down, I can put it back down to normal speed. The world
takes is up to the player, as they choose between the two or stay neutral. But no matter what, they find themselves teleported to another plane of existence with the other heroes as missiles are launched toward Tokyo. The group awakens 35 years later in the apocalypse.
I feel like SMT games have too much existential dread for me.
It's certainly similar,
if I'm being quite honest, like I'm afraid to play these and end up questioning everything, because aren't they like post-apocalyptic games?
Gameplay-wise, much of it remains similar to Megami Tensei 2, though factions played a greater role, as demons or locations associated with law or chaos would want nothing to do with the player if they were aligned with the opposite side. But its defining feature could be considered the decision to set the events in Tokyo. This made it stand out amongst other RPGs on the Super Famicom, and the developers decided to lean into it. Tokyo was seen as a place with a turbulent history, often suffering massive damage during wars and going through many phases of development. To them, this made the setting similar to other traditional RPGs.
Devil Survivor on the 3DS will be very fun to you. Grounds the characters like Persona games. They're about surviving natural disasters, disturbing daily life, and not the post-apocalypse.
At this point, sequels were inevitable, and dear
I might check that out.
That being said, Shin Megami Tensei was not the moniker of the next game released only 2 months later.
Yeah, I might go ahead and check that out. Devil Survivor.
That would be Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible, and as implied by Gaiden,
oh my god, there's so many SMT games. This looks old as shit.
As the creatures depicted weren't labeled demons, but monsters. That said, much of the gameplay established by earlier titles is featured here. Players run around the world fighting monsters and can choose to recruit them via conversation. Certain party members have an easier time talking.
So many games solo. Well, if you subscribe, if you haven't already, by the way, I'll check them all out.
On traditional fantasy,
they look interesting to me, at least.
Energy known as Gaia. But
it's called Last Bible.
Using Gaia began overrunning the world, forcing L to set out on a journey to not only discover their
I could have tricked my Christian parents into letting me play this.
Monsters. The story is kept simple with no morality system, and the gameplay is likewise easier. Again, this was meant
so many SMT games. It's funny, Pokemon got
fun fact,
controversy about summoning demons. Well, to be granted, the only Persona game that, or the only SMT game that came out in America around that time period was Persona 1, right? Revelations. So
was seen as dated, considering it was mainly developed 7 years earlier.
Clearly that wasn't a powerhouse of a title, so of course they didn't gather around it. Meanwhile, Pokemon was anything and everywhere.
Last Bible 2 is basically more of the same from a gameplay standpoint, and only saw minor enhancements.
And I'm assuming in
to its
Japan they
graphics.
don't give a shit
The
about
biggest
that.
change was the ability to
Devil
equip
summoning
accessories
stuff.
to recruited monsters in order to
Only
increase
us
their
weird
power.
Americans.
That said, it is a brand new story where, in ancient times, monsters and humans fought bitterly for control of the planet, ending in a 2,000-year stalemate. Players take the role of Yuri, who was raised by a group of monsters, and is tasked with stopping the coming apocalypse. This event will be triggered by an immensely powerful monster whose return was marked by Yuri's own birth and connected their fates. Side story is right. This has gotten far removed.
There's a
from the
good
original
meme
Megami
about
Tensei,
Pokemon
but
popularity
perhaps that's for the
made sure
best,
that
as
they
the soul
draw
of the
all
series seems to have
criticism
become
from Christian
monster
groups
and
while
demon
SMT got off
negotiation and
scot-free.
recruiting. And with
I mean, just be
1994's Majin
unpopular.
Tensei,
That's all you
or
have to
Demon
do.
God reincarnation, that core idea was brought to a slightly different genre, a strategy RPG.
Oh no, a
That
strategy
said, it
RPG.
doesn't
This is the
necessarily do
tactics
anything
of
that new,
Tactica of
and
the
takes a lot
SMT
of its
series.
basics from Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem. Battle maps are shown from a top-down perspective with basic sprites to represent characters. Combat plays out as expected with the usual attacks and supports. Demons can still be recruited and fused.
That
but
overworld
Magnetite
city.
returns as a resource
Look
that
how
must be
flat that
managed.
city
Have too
was.
many demons on the field or take too long in battle, and the Magnetite will run out, leaving you on your own. It succeeds in bringing the typical Shin Megami Tensei mechanics to the strategy genre, but Majin Tensei is most known for its absolutely gorgeous sprite work. Many tout it as the best-looking Tensei game on the Super Famicom.
I mean, as long as they don't go to that overworld, this is the best looking game.
Story-wise, it takes place in the aftermath of a large-scale ethnic war where a large portion of the world was closed off. Decades later, the
large-scale
player receives a
ethnic
demon zoning
war?
program shortly before demons begin appearing all over Tokyo. During his efforts to rescue people from the demons, the protagonist comes across a young girl in cryogenic sleep.
It's crazy
no
how old
memory.
Atlus
Together, they
is,
must
yeah.
fight back the demon horde while learning more of her past. While there's no morality system, there are 3 different endings based on your choices.
Like I literally
They fall
just
into
discovered
more traditional
Persona
categories of
when
bad and
around
evil.
when 5 the Royal
It was
came
only
out,
2
so
months later that Shin Megami Tensei 2 finally released on the Super Famicom. Picking up several decades after the end of the
so
original
like
Shin
yeah,
Megami
this
Tensei,
is it's
it was
interesting
intended
going back and
mostly
seeing like,
for its
oh,
own, so
you
players
like
didn't
these
feel like they
games? We
missed
have like
anything in the
1,000
original.
other
In the
games.
intervening time, disasters
Check
plagued
'em out.
Tokyo, leaving the air unbreathable. Humanity has taken shelter in the new Tokyo Millennium, where a class system has taken shape. Players
Okay.
take the role of Aleph, a gladiator with no memory who learns that he's actually the Messiah.
Yo, what?
Now he must
What the
fight
fuck?
demons
Okay, I
and
can see what you're
anti-Messiah
saying about the
in order to
stories
prepare the
being
world
kind of
for a
weird.
1,000-year kingdom of
What?
paradise. Of course, nothing is ever simple, and the player's choices could lead to one of several endings. While the gameplay remained mostly the same from the original, there were some notable changes.
A car and a
One is the
oh.
overall decrease in difficulty to make it less brutal than the original, and this includes some quality of life improvements. While exploring dungeons, again in first person, the auto map screen can be brought up with the tap of a button to make navigation easier. There's also a bar indicating how likely demons are to attack, allowing players to prepare for a fight.
Okay, that's
Somewhat,
good.
an element carried over to future Shin Megami Tensei titles. Likewise, this was the first instance of skill inheritance in the series, where the newly fused demons could use spells passed on from the previous demons, although which ones
I mean,
were chosen was left random.
Wonder what it would be
The
like to be an old
alignments of many
SMT
demons were also
fan.
shifted from law or chaos to
Ooh,
neutral
there's
in
fusions?
order to give the player a greater variety of demons to fuse and recruit.
Okay,
This,
interesting,
in
but
particular, was a major
I mean, at
shortcoming of
least
the first
there are
game,
other
according to its
spin-offs of the
developers.
same variety.
Finally, players had more
It's not
control
like,
over
oh,
the
here
attacks
goes a
used by
spin-off
demons,
that
though this meant
is
they now
a
had their own
strategy
powerful
RPG.
magic to manage.
And then, like,
The
here
game
goes a
was
dancing game.
well-regarded, but it wasn't the last game in the series to be released in 1994.
And also, at least they're not bad as Kingdom Hearts, where it's just like, this mobile game has story consequences that you need to pay attention to. What if our school is drawn into another world? This is the story.
That would be Shin Megami Tensei If, a what-if game that told the story of what would happen if the apocalypse didn't occur.
What?
The idea was to make it smaller in scope, and that's reflected in its shorter playtime.
I feel like
However,
this is...
it was made highly replayable thanks to an early choice in the game. The story focuses on Adeo Hazama, a bullied high school student who decides to get revenge by performing an occult ceremony in the school itself.
All right,
This not only
relax.
grants him the power to become the deity emperor, but
And also, I feel like this is like a
expanse where demons dwell.
like a
In the
beta
series
for
first,
Persona.
players take the role of either a male or female student who tries to escape the demon realm with the help of the Comp, a device from the original Shin Megami Tensei that contains the demon summoning program, allowing them to negotiate and recruit demons. What makes this entry unique is rather than a player's alignment dictating the ending, it comes from their choice and partner.
Okay.
3 students are available from the beginning.
I might check out this one. This one actually seems interesting.
The first 3 offer their own version of
This game
events that
heavily
players
inspired
walk
the
through while
first one.
exploring worlds
I can
based on set
probably see why
events.
that's the case.
The fourth is similar, except that the pair instead have to climb the massive Tower of Confinement. Other than this new structure, the biggest gameplay change was the Guardian Spirit system. Whenever the player or their partner dies in battle, they are revived at the last save point and given a new Guardian Spirit. This spirit affects their stat growths, giving players the chance to come back stronger. Unfortunately, there's no way to actually choose a spirit, and death means you're forced to change it, leading to some criticism. But the setting of If proved to be its most enduring legacy, as the mix of high school, its associated problems, and demons were quite popular and would lead directly to the creation of the Persona series. In fact, If takes place in the same continuity.
Okay.
But there's still a few years until
She has a
release.
Nintendo Power Arm
Instead,
attached to
the
her.
next game would be a sequel to Majin Tensei, Majin Tensei 2 Spiral Nemesis. Like
Oh no,
most
not
Shin Megami
Spiral
Tensei games,
Nemesis.
it's not a direct sequel, though it features similar settings. This time it focuses on a demon invasion that transforms Tokyo into a demon capital. Humans band together to resist this takeover, with players taking the role of Naoki, whose choices between law and chaos will take the world in very different directions. It's much more story-focused than its predecessor, though it does make a few trade-offs in gameplay that has caused some debate on which is the better game. As for those changes, the overall map has shifted to an angled viewpoint, making it stand out a bit more from Fire Emblem, though the sprites are still incredibly basic. It
Yeah,
also
they
shows
look
both the character attacking and the character being attacked during battle, but the artwork has taken a notable dip in exchange. Battle conditions have been expanded beyond defeating all enemies, but the goals remain pretty basic. Take an enemy base, defeat a boss, or take on a random horde of demons to grind experience, money, and new demons for fusion. Otherwise, the terrain of a map can grant bonuses depending on where units stop. Spiral Nemesis technically marked the end of the Majin Tensei series. There was a sequel, but, well,
I like these graphics, honestly, still looks good.
The Last Bible series got a massive push with 3 different games released in March of 1995.
The same day. Last Bible 3 character art is disgusting, bro. Who did this? Who let the artist look like this?
Game Boy. Set in the same world as Last Bible 2, years have passed and a peace has been formed between humans and monsters. However, the new united government is working to ban the use of magic as they strive to create a perpetual engine for free energy. But something darker lurks underneath as a young boy named Ciel gets swept into these events after mysterious soldiers ransack his village in an attempt to kill his father. The gameplay mostly stays the same as Last Bible 2.
That is some 90s anime. No, that's fucking, what is it? How to draw manga type anime?
How well the player's monster negotiation is going. It's what you'd expect from a 16-bit RPG,
Tokyo Pop type manga anime.
Generally considered the best.
And if you know, you know.
Subseries. Alongside Last Bible 3 was another Bible.
Oh no, never mind.
Which itself was a spin-off of the series, taking it in a strategy RPG direction. There's not much to say about it though, as it brings hardly anything new to the genre. The story is kept simple, where a monster cult has encouraged monsters to throw away their peace with humans. At the same time, a boy named Cassiel rescues a girl named Pythia, and the two
Cassio, as in the watch?
Restore harmony. Honestly, the most notable thing about it is how battle maps are blank save for where your character is moving and the locations of the monsters themselves. But I suppose it was something for Game Boy fans. Stranger still was Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible Special, which released at the end of that same March and was developed exclusively for the Game Gear by Sega. Unsurprisingly, the shift in developers resulted in a game wholly disconnected from the tone and gameplay of the previous titles. Rather than a fantasy world, it dives headfirst into a Christian setting with players taking control of Mattel, who is tasked by the Pope to brave 4 dungeons in order to free Jerusalem from the Demon King.
What?
Dungeons are explored from a first-person perspective, much like the mainline Megami Tensei games.
Hey yo,
but it was a first for the last.
take this game to church, your pastor won't be mad.
Really presented,
No, pastor, I'm trying to free Jerusalem from the demons. You don't understand. I'm the only survivor. Hold on, let me put some skill points into luck.
Be the last game released in this sub-series. But the next game marked a first, as it was the first time a Shin Megami Tensei title was localized for the West.
The Pope sent me.
Jack Bros for the Virtual Boy. Well, that's an auspicious start.
Jack Bros?
Is considered one of the
that sounds nasty.
what that's worth. The story is set.
Oh no, it is on the fucking Virtual Boy.
Unfortunately, Jack Frost, Pyro Jack, and Jack Ripper all lost track of time in their fun and are forced to use a danger-filled shortcut if they have any hope of ever returning.
I'm sorry, I'm not playing a game called Jack Bros.
Jack Frost is an early game demon who first debuted in Megami Tensei 2.
So these are like the Pikachu and Eevee of
Shin Megami Tensei,
Shin Megami Tensei, right?
Trickster well known today, who has become a mascot for Atlus as a whole due to his popularity both among fans.
Since Shin Megami Tensei fandom is the Neo-Bible community. Hey,
Megami Tensei 2 with a very different design.
I wouldn't mind joining that.
Eventually got grouped with Jack Frost as a kind of brother. The two are often paired, but less common is Jack Ripper, who didn't debut
Jack
until
Frost.
Shin Megami Tensei 2. I suppose the developers just really wanted a trio. But never mind.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that game before. Where you're like, it's a platformer Metrovania type game.
Terrifying for what's simply a cutesy labyrinth spin-off.
Yo, that actually looks sick.
Jack Frost got Mike Wazowski. Seriously, look at the Japanese box art, then look at how it was marketed.
No, that's American right there. I fuck with that jack-o'-lantern right there.
The game itself, players choose one of the jacks and must navigate a labyrinth from the top-down perspective while using normal
a Pikachu who would shoot you if you negotiated wrong and then call you a hoe.
Takes causes it to decrease faster. The goal is to navigate multiple floors across 6 levels where they must find keys
that's
in a
mad
given
annoying.
time. Naturally, traps and enemies increase the farther players go.
Why would you want to play this? Why would you want to have this strapped to your head and look at this? This actually would be cool if it was like had a better frame rate and color than just red.
As a playable character. Critics generally enjoyed the game, noting the surprisingly good music and fun yet simple design. Again, it's considered one of the best games on the Virtual Boy, making for a solid Western debut.
That's sad. The fact that this is the best game on the Virtual Boy.
One more game released in 1995, marking the start of a new sub-series. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner forgoes the usual tale of the apocalypse in favor of a modern story focused on an unnamed college student in the fictional Hirosaki city, who is saved from demons by a detective and demon hunter named Kyoji Kuzunoa. However, Kyoji is soon found murdered and the same fate befalls the student. But instead of passing on to the afterlife, the protagonist finds himself possessing the body of Kyoji. He must now work with
destroying your vision just to help out Jack. No, bro. He wouldn't join my party, so no. Me and Jack on hateful terms.
There were some twists on the formula. During battle, your party could be arranged on a 2x3 grid that determined how they could attack enemies. If they were in the back row but had no long-range weapon, then they wouldn't be as effective. And while there was an alignment system in the game, it didn't affect the ending. Only what demons were available to recruit and fuse. Perhaps the most divisive change was the inclusion of the demon loyalty system. It wasn't enough to recruit demons, players had to keep them happy.
I want to kind of talk about the old art style. Who was the artist for so there's multiple, it seems like, I don't know if it was the same artist, but there was multiple artists, right, for Persona, right? Because there's the art style that was like from 1 and 2, and then like early SMT,
becoming the 14th best-selling game on the system in Japan,
and then like it transitioned into just like generic anime.
However, it was 1996 that marked the beginning of the spin-off that would eventually overtake the main series in popularity, Megami Ibanroku Persona. The Megami marked it as part of the Shin Megami Tensei series, while Ibanroku translates to Strange Record. This naming scheme was only kept in Japan for this game, though, as all future titles were simply called Persona. This was also the second Shin Megami Tensei game released in the West, though there were quite a few things that
I
separated
tried to play this game on the PlayStation Classic or whatever the fuck it was called, the PlayStation, you know, the little PlayStation Mini or whatever.
Which is similar to the Bloody Mary folklore. The group
this game is rough, but then someone told me to play the PSP version that's better, so I'll check that out eventually.
Among all souls. He grants them the ability to use personas, and it's not long after that Mikage.
And also, apparently they blackface that character.
Of a group known as Seaback. The high schoolers must investigate the group, defeat demons along the way, and restore peace to the town. There is some replayability though, as a second storyline can be discovered that shifts the party into a completely new
P1 is not good. P2 is cool though.
He discards tradition by having no demons in the party whatsoever, while battles take place from an isometric viewpoint.
PS1 version is if you have all the time in the world to play a P1 game.
Like Devil Summoner. But if all the enemies in a certain character's range are
defeated, on that PlayStation Mini, that was the only playable game because the other games ran like shit.
Makes it somewhat of a hassle. Demons, as they're traditionally known, have been relabeled as Persona, and
but if I do go back to Persona 1, I'm going to be doing the portable version.
The entire system of equipping Personas was to expand upon the Guardian system from Shin Megami Tensei If.
But apparently 2 is better. So if I were to cover the series, does it matter if I start with 2 or
to all characters, as some are incompatible with their Arcana. Arcana are basically the same as demon races from previous games and follow the names of the major tarot arcana. As an example, this means the protagonist can equip personas of the Hierophant, Death, or Star Arcana.
That's stupid.
In addition, the initial and ultimate persona of a character can only be used with that character.
Oh, this is early Persona, bro.
Arcana,
I would hate this game.
Latent skill. Either way, these persona appear in battle as ghostly figures rising above the character, which created a comparison to stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. With no demons to directly recruit,
Persona 2 is just a good game. Deeper story than 1.
With enemies will put them in different moods that in turn could make them attack the party, run from the battle, give an item, or provide a special spell card. Those cards can then be taken to Philemon's Velvet Room, where the
2 has story links to 1 in comparison to 3 and 5, although they are spoiler heavy.
As he can summon new personas for the characters from the spell cards on hand.
Persona 2 is just a good game, has deeper gameplay.
Can equip with 3 personas at a time and can switch between them during battle. However, they can only be exchanged with new personas within the Velvet Room.
Yo, this game looks
is also
rough.
Present as the cards can be fused together to create a new persona, which itself
like out of all the old games, maybe it's because I'm comparing it in my mind to the current version of Persona, but like this just looks rougher than the other old games that we saw.
The game was an immediate hit in Japan, selling 201,000 copies in its first week, a record.
People recommend just reading Persona 1's manga for the story.
5. It would go on to be the 21st best-selling game of 1996, with many praising its unique setting and story, including many Western outlets. That's especially impressive considering all the localization changes made to the game, including excising most references to Japan, changing
Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, have to play the fan translation PSP
Thankfully, the
port.
PSP re-release of the game reverted all those changes, allowing for a more faithful experience along with quality of life
I will
improvements.
check that one
The next
out.
Shin Megami
Fan
Tensei
translation.
game came in April of 1997 and is the first of 2 PC exclusive games in the series. Giten Megami Tensei Tokyo Moku Shiroku, or False Reincarnation
Tokyo
of the Goddess,
Moku
Tokyo Revelation,
Shiroku,
is a kind of retelling of Megami Tensei 2, at least in its initial setup. After a nuclear cataclysm, humanity resides in underground shelters found across Japan, while demons roam the surface, having been set loose by the apocalypse. The story follows Ayato Katsuragi, a young man who joins the demon defense force known as the Devil Busters. Unfortunately, when another shelter is seemingly attacked, Ayato is tricked into downloading a virus disguised as a demon-repelling program. This causes him to become possessed by a demon, where he then kills several civilians and lowers the shelter's defenses so demons can invade and wreak havoc. This event is what frees Ayato from the possession, where he becomes determined to travel across Japan and put a stop to the demons once and for all. In terms of gameplay, it has many of the hallmarks of past Shin Megami Tensei games, exploring dungeons in first person, multiple endings based on choices, demon recruitment, demon fusion, and the like, but demons can earn their own experience and level up while also equipping weapons and armor to strengthen them. It also forgoes the typical turn-based system and instead has each character.
Yo, this game actually looks cool.
They can move again, taking a page from Final Fantasy's active time battle. While I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs of every Shin Megami Tensei game, Giten Megami Tensei has a reputation as one of the more graphic games in the series, with frequent female nudity and certain graphic depictions.
Yo, is there a translation for this game? I repeat, is there a translation for this game? Because
game in the Majin Tensei strategy series was released on the Sega Saturn.
I'm asking for a friend, you guys.
Rather than being developed by the same team who worked on the first two entries, it was handed to Multimedia Intelligence Transfer, the developers behind the last Bible series. The story
oh no, what the freak is this?
A young man in the near future who visits a museum with two friends and his younger
yo,
brother.
I'm that friend.
However, the museum
together scour the internet for a translation for that game. We're on it.
Writings are decoded by
what the heck is this?
Not only unleashes the demon within the crystal statue, but causes an outbreak of demons within cyberspace. The freak
that animation.
Asuka's younger brother and escapes into the computer, forcing Asuka and his friends to give chase. Gameplay-wise, not much has been changed from Majin Tensei 2, except
my
players
nemesis
can no longer talk directly with demons. Instead, they may choose to converse with you after being defeated, and then join if the correct responses were given. There are also demon contracts that can allow human party members to use that demon's magic.
Oh, what was that? What was the name of the game called? Hold on.
And a demo actually led to the cancellation of pre-orders. Much of that may be due to the game's graphics,
Tokyo Moshu Shiroku,
and each battle sequence can take about 30 seconds to complete due to sluggish animations and load times. Sadly, this poor showing marked the end of the Majin Tensei series. So why didn't Atlus handle the development themselves? Well, that would be due to a different sequel, Devil Summoner Soul Hackers, which released less than 2 weeks later. Its story centers on a new protagonist that belongs to a group of hackers called the Spookies, who are able to hack their way into a beta invite for a new virtual world called Paradigm X. As the protagonist talks with the mysterious Red Man, he eventually learns that there are
is that a floating dog?
Through a series of vision quests, he learns about demon hunters and a group called the Phantom Society, who are using the virtual world to steal souls. While it is a new story and a new setting, several characters from the original Devil Summoner do appear, including Kyoji Kuzunoa and his assistant Rei Reiho, who are also investigating.
Yo, this game actually, she looks dope.
Hackers doesn't bring much new to the table and instead focuses on refining what was already in Devil Summoner. The graphics are better, the
Devil Summoner Soul Hackers,
and the loyalty system has been refined, allowing players to become better friends with their demons and encourage them to use moves that they wouldn't normally want to in battle. Upgrades can also be installed in the player's GUMP, or gun computer, which allows them to shoot and summon demons, making exploration a little easier or even allowing them to save anywhere. Soul Hackers was popular enough to be ported from the Sega Saturn to the PlayStation in Japan.
Reading the Bible and watching. I mean, they have an interesting outlook on Supernatural. I can give them that. I feel like the West is a little bit stilted when it comes to its inspiration, when it comes to... Okay, this is two everybody's talking about. This is the second one.
Surprisingly, the series had no new releases in 1998 and didn't return until June of '99 with Persona 2 Innocent Sin for the PlayStation. The sequel had gone into development soon after the release of the original and picks up 3 years after in the fictional Sumeru City. The protagonist, Tatsuya Suo, and one of his friends are approached by a boy from another high school to join his band, but a school rivalry sparks an argument that somehow leads to the awakening of their personas. Philemon appears to warn the trio that rumors are becoming reality in the city, but despite this, they still decide to try a new urban legend game. By calling their own phone number, they can summon a being known as Joker and be granted a wish. But upon seeing them, Joker calls them out for their sin and drains most of the group of their ideal energy,
what?
Which is described as the essence of hopes and dreams. Now they, along with a reporter named Maya and her assistant Yukino, who returns from the original Persona, must investigate Joker, confront the cult around him, and even contend with Nazis.
Looking good, Joker.
Of rumors. Much like
I'm the Joker, baby.
Persona 2 makes improvements across the board, improving load times, increasing the amount of save points, and generally trying to streamline the game when possible. The grid system has been removed from the original to make battles a little easier, while the party
Okay,
size
so
has been
this is the
reduced to 5
PlayStation 1
characters.
version of Persona
Exploration
2.
is no longer in first person, and the game maintains an isometric view at all times. In addition, there's the rumor system, tying into the game's premise of rumors becoming reality. It's possible to hear a rumor from someone in town and make it real by spreading that rumor through the Kuzunoa Detective Agency. These rumors can make new accessories, weapons, and even shops appear for the party to use.
Yo, that's a
But
cool
speaking of the
gameplay
Detective
mechanic.
Agency, one of its staff members is Tamaki, the female protagonist of Shin Megami Tensei If. She also appeared in the original Persona in a more minor role, but it's these connections that confirm that If, Persona,
Tamaki,
and the Devil
any
Summoner
relation to
subseries
Anna
all take
Tamaki?
place in the same universe. Personas and enemy conversation work mostly the same as the original, though a few changes have been made.
Just do the
Spell
PSP
cards have become
version.
tarot
Yeah.
cards, which don't affect much outside the possibility of blank cards. These can be tailored to fit a chosen Persona family and fuse what the player wants. It's also the only way to obtain personas of certain arcana.
Okay.
Each character's alignment with the arcana still comes into play, but rather than determine the chance of a latent skill, a strong alignment will decrease its spell costs and increase the chance of stat bonuses. It makes the entire Persona system deeper than before. In terms of brand new features, Innocent Sin introduces the party's stock system, which allows characters to swap extra personas during battle. So if the enemy is weak to ice, but you only have Pyrojack, you can swap Pyrojack for a Jack Frost equipped to another character waiting in the wings.
Oh,
There are
okay.
also fusion spells where more powerful attacks are available if the right set of spells are used by different characters.
Yeah, the
in
Velvet
set
Room
order,
looked like kind of a
encouraging
chill place to hang. I'm trying to go to the
Character
Velvet
interaction
Room.
is emphasized more
All
than
right,
before,
guys.
as each
Here, okay,
safe
so
room
here's the
visited
goal, you
provides the
guys.
opportunity for the group to talk among
I get, okay, so clearly get famous off of YouTube, get a bunch of money. We make a Velvet Room themed bar.
amongst themselves, creating more of a bond between the player and party.
Do you think people will come
Despite
to
this
it?
step
Do you
forward,
think there's
it's only
enough
really
turnover
shown through new
fan
dialogue
base
options that become
that will go to
available
Velvet
and
Room
some
bar?
local Persona fusions. Although there is a bigger moment later in the game where Tatsuya can choose to date one of 3 other party members,
Ooh.
one of which is another man. This
Oh,
attraction
you
to
get
both
gay in this
sexes is
game?
mentioned throughout the game, though never judged, and the same applies to the male romance option. It has
Okay.
been lauded as one of the best representations of queer characters in an RPG, which is especially shocking considering the time it was released. Still, this and the Nazis are likely why Innocent Sin was never
I'm sorry?
localized initially. That said, Innocent Sin
I'm sorry, did he
was
say
not the end of
Nazis?
Persona 2's story. But before that, there was one other game released in 1999, this time for the Dreamcast, Makin X. It marks several firsts for the series as it was the first full
Modern
3D
Persona
title,
could never.
the first non-RPG,
Yeah, he said.
and the first time a game was directed by Katsura Hoshino, who would go on to direct Shin Megami Tensei 3,
Wait, there's a
Digital Devil Saga,
blue-colored bar
and all
named
3
Velvet
modern
Room in
Personas.
Brooklyn?
The story focuses on
All
a
right,
research
they
institute
definitely
that develops the world's
Persona
first
fan.
artificial demon, who names itself Makin and takes the form of a sword. While ostensibly it was created to help with mental illnesses thanks to its brainjack ability, that's later revealed to not quite be the case. Instead, Makin has the ability to take control of its wielder and substitute its spirit essence with the host, while also being able to destroy that essence in others. Now it must stop several groups who have used this essence to warp their bodies in an effort to control the world. Naturally, the choices made by Makin will lead to one of several endings. As for its gameplay, Makin X is a first.
I don't know what they be smoking over there at Atlus. Okay, so you play as a sword that embodies a person.
Missions where new playable characters that Makin can brainjack await, and side missions. Each character Makin brainjacks has different stats and abilities, along with changing the appearance of Makin. The levels themselves are mostly linear, but the environment does feature limited platforming.
Ew, why does it look like he has a little dick coming out of him?
To backstep, strafe, and unleash a variety of combos. There's also an EX gauge for powerful special attacks. A kind of experience system is in place thanks to Essence, or PSI points, earned from defeated enemies. Makin's PSI level notes which characters he can brainjack. If their PSI is larger than his, then the brainjack will fail and the character will be unavailable. It was generally well received in Japan, earning one of the highest scores in Dreamcast magazine. Western critics were
higher than Shenmue
it as a highlight of the Dreamcast at the time. That brings us back to the second part of Persona 2, Eternal Punishment.
Eternal
Released almost
Punishment.
a year to the day after Innocent Sin. Early on into Innocent Sin's production, the scriptwriter felt that an alternate viewpoint beyond the main hero was necessary. The team even went so far as to foreshadow some of the major players of Eternal Punishment by having them appear as minor characters in Innocent Sin. The story this time around focuses on Maya and her investigation into the Joker phenomenon. This time, calling your own number will still summon Joker, but rather than granting a wish, he'll kill anyone you request.
What?
This eventually brings her to the Seven Sisters High School, where she and 2 other characters find its principal murdered by Joker. It's at this point
damn Joker, he wildin' in this game.
Given access to their personas, allowing them to delve deeper.
Japan gets very cool, uncensored versions of the game,
as it slowly unravels not only what's going on in the city, but what happened
that
at
sucks.
the end of
America, why you gotta be so
But that's also the
strict.
tricky part. If someone has played the first game, then they know why things are the way they are in Eternal Punishment. It's the changes and differences that pull them in. For newcomers,
I like the concept of Persona 2 Innocent Sin in this one as well.
Although many of those revelations might not hit
It seems a lot darker.
I honestly can't say for certain, but I do know that Eternal Punishment was localized in the West, meaning this exact scenario played out for anyone in the West who picked up the game. Naturally, due to being developed on the same engine as Innocent Sin, Eternal Punishment plays mostly the same as that game. There are some upgrades such as skippable battle animations and slightly better graphics. The story features some minor branching paths as well, but nothing too significantly different. For many, the Persona 2 duology is a hallmark of the franchise that even the recent Personas can't top.
Damn.
2000 also marked the start of another sub-series, itself a kind of callback to the Last Bible, in that it
when are we going to get to
Megami Tensei game accessible for all ages.
to the fucking
gameplay,
Mirage
Devil
sessions?
Children took more of its influence from Pokemon, including releasing with 2 versions, Black Book and Red Book. That said, unlike Pokemon, there were significant differences to the story between the two. Black Book focuses on Setsuna, an orphan
Literally.
brother. Lately, strange
Okay, I want all y'all Power World people to calm the fuck down. All y'all Pokemon fans talking about Power World. This game came out 24 years ago. 24 years ago. Literally has 2 versions like Pokemon has. But nah.
The arrival of a mysterious package. Before he can open it, a horde of Petite Frost attempt to steal it along with Setsuna's brother.
Now you told me Mirage Sessions is peak now?
The Devil Riser gun, which summons his new partner.
So apparently Atlus just doesn't miss,
but
apparently.
Petite Frost get away with his brother, forcing Setsuna to travel to the Demon World
To make their own
and
Power
save him.
World. All they need to
Red
do
Book
is
story
learn how to make
similar,
an open
although
world
it focuses on
RPG.
the tale of Mirai, Setsuna's
I think they have the
neighbor and another
capability to
orphan.
do
She meets a
so.
young boy at
It's just
school who
that
leaves a box with her
I
before
think
disappearing.
maybe they don't have the
It isn't
budget
long
for it.
until the demon Soda, taking the form of a different young boy, attempts to take the box. The struggle reveals her own Devil Riser, which summons her partner, Vale the Griffin. It isn't long before
This
she
is
learns that her
Pokemon.
long-lost father is actually in the demon world, so she sets out to
Stop.
find him. The gameplay is a
Megami
mix
Tensei
between
did it
classic
first.
Shin
Megami Tensei
battles and
copied
Pokemon.
first.
The children don't fight at
No,
all, and
Megami
instead
Tensei
seek out
came
the demons in
before
exclusive 2-on-2
Pokemon.
fights. If one of yours is
And then
defeated, it will
copied
instantly be
Pokemon at the
replaced by
same
another in the
time.
party. Despite this, only the kids gain experience from battles, which makes demon
Still don't
negotiation and fusion
get why
necessary to
uncensored
take on
versions of
stronger
other
threats.
countries'
That
games.
said, each
Like we
version
get
has a
Baldur's
unique
Gate
method of
3.
fusion
The
available.
gamers don't
Black
really
Book
want
uses the
censored
standard
games.
racial fusion, while Red Book utilizes pure
American
and mixed blood
censorship is
fusions.
weird.
Pure blood fusion fuses the same demon together to
Like some
increase the
things are
maximum
allowed,
hit
so
points,
others
magic
aren't.
points, and potentially
weird.
unlock hidden skills. If fused enough times, the demon can eventually evolve. Mixed blood fusion fuses 2 different demons together with results depending on the order chosen.
Pokemon copied
and their
Mega 10
individual
for
power
Creature
levels.
Collection,
If the
then
first
Mega 10
demon chosen
copied
has a higher
Pokemon
level
back.
than the second, then the first will be
Basically.
strengthened. If the second demon chosen has the higher level, the first will transform into a higher level demon of the same race. This forced anyone playing both versions to utilize different strategies. The other major difference between the two involves the kids' partner demons. Cool and Veil can be ridden, which increases both the walking speed and the encounter rate. But the
Okay.
unique traits allow Cool to jump up ledges, walk on lava.
Look,
and
they even
cross
have more
obstacles
tech than
by digging
Pokemon had at that time. You can
Veil
ride your
cross cliffs,
Pokemon.
water, and ignore slippery
They didn't
clay
get this
thanks to
until
flight.
Scarlet and
However,
Violet.
she
Like,
cannot cross lava,
and y'all
will
want to
still
talk
fall
about
down
Power
holes in the
World
ground.
being
This difference in abilities can make certain parts of the game easier or harder depending on the version, with some
Kids nowadays
areas
like
only being
guns instead of
accessible in either
demons.
Black Book or Red
I
Book.
mean,
Naturally, each version had exclusive demons, which encouraged players to trade. The games
I
were
mean,
seen
that's
as
why
mostly
Persona Reload
average
is
to
getting
most
so
critics
popular
upon
now.
release,
You get a
although
gun and
many
you get to
noted it had
shoot
more
yourself
depth
with
than
that gun.
Pokemon
Come
at
on
the
now.
time. 2001 would see the first sequel to Devil Children, White Book, which focuses on a new protagonist, Masaki, and his connection to another boy named Takaharu. The two's fates have been manipulated by angels and demons, though this is unknown to them for
You can
quite
ride them in
some
Gen
time.
6 and 7
This all
too.
changes when the returning Soda attacks Masaki. Fortunately, he obtains his own Devil Riser and partner demon, Clay the Chimera, to fend off the assault. But his troubles are only beginning as a different horde of demons attack Takaharu's younger sister and place her under a sleeping curse, laying the blame firmly at Masaki's feet. Now he must travel to the demon world.
And
to
thank
find
you for
the
the follow
cure,
over on
clear
Twitch.
his name, and discover his past. White Book only made minimal changes to the gameplay while increasing the total number of demons to over 300.
By the way, if you haven't checked out the Twitch channel, there are certain things that we react to over on Twitch that we don't on YouTube for copyright. We might watch Persona Trinity Souls,
that could now be powered up through attachments.
so
that added
prepare
helpful abilities both in and
prepare
out of
yourself for
battle.
that. Apparently,
That said, there was a limit to how many could be equipped at a time. Fusion was also greatly expanded, allowing Masaki to use normal racial fusion, pure fusion, and mixed
Racial
blood
fusion?
along with
Hey,
new
that's me.
infrared fusion. This used the Game Boy Color's infrared sensor, having players pointed at an infrared light during the fusion process. It was mainly the same as racial fusion, but the resulting demon would be transformed into a higher
prepare a
level
pillow
one
for
of its
Persona
race.
Trinity
White
Souls.
Book was generally seen as an improvement over the
Oh,
original,
no.
though some critics noted the difficulty of the early game. While White Book didn't have a companion version, it wasn't the only Devil Children game to release that day.
Someone told me there was a
The
Persona
movie
3
push the series
character
had
in
led
it,
to its
and
own
that
anime,
if I'm
soundtracks,
doing Persona
and
stuff, I should probably
inevitably,
take a look
trading
at
card
that.
game. And the trading card game was eventually adapted into a video game, Shin Megami Tensei Trading Card Summoner. What's truly strange, though,
There's
is
a
that this
card one,
wasn't
too?
an adaptation of the Devil Children card game, as it used traditional artwork from the main series and referenced characters from that. The game plays
Okay,
much the same
technically they're
way as the
also
Pokemon
copying
trading
off.
card
This is
game.
literally
You are a
Pokemon,
young
the trading
card
card
summoner who
game
sets out
for
to
the
become
Game
the
Boy.
best, challenging others along the way, and
The
earning
exact
valuable
same
cards
premise.
or money to purchase booster packs. Amazingly, there are 3 different endings to the game, following the usual law, chaos,
course.
and neutral dichotomy.
Of course,
The
even
rules
in
revolve around 4 card types.
even in these games,
that are
there's like
summoned to fight,
choices to your
partners
ending.
which give
It's
the player
insane. It's
a different form
unhinged.
of characters from across the series, magic that represents spells from the series, and items that take the form of tools or weapons. The goal is to eliminate the opponent's HP in the same vein as Yu-Gi-Oh! However, most cards' abilities can't be utilized without Magnetite, which comes in 5 varieties, and are necessary to summon demons, cast magic, or use
Persona
items.
Trinity Soul is
Think of them
alright,
like the
but
energy
definitely would
cards from
benefit from a
Pokemon, though
remake.
here, Magnetite is either emitted from a demon or partner, or can be gathered by sacrificing your own HP. And that's pretty much all there is to it, as the game is virtually unknown in the West. But that's to be expected, as Shin Megami Tensei
Was thinking
content
more
hadn't gotten
Yu-Gi-Oh!
even remotely popular
Than
yet,
the
with
Pokemon
only a scant few
TCG.
games getting localized.
I just mean
But
the
next
overall
generation
setup of
Devil
the
Children
Pokemon
would see
TCG
a Western release
or
a full
story
year after
of that
the
game
Japanese
is
one.
you're playing the
Devil Children
Pokemon
Light
card
and
game
Dark version were
based on
localized
the
as Shin
Pokemon
Megami
game.
Tensei Demi-Kids Light and Dark, marking the first time the Shin Megami Tensei moniker was used in the West. The games focus on a new set of kids, Jin and Akira, who find a strange book in the library. This turns out to be the Demon Compendium, and after reading an incantation from it,
They find a
hostile
strange book in the
demons
library. It turns out to
they
be a
handed
demon
their devil
compendium.
risers by a transfer student named Lena, and
You know,
each
type
received their own
shit.
demon
Stuff that
partner.
happens between
Lena
kids
takes
in
Jin to
the
realm of
when you're
Valhalla
growing
to
up.
battle a villain known as Imperius, while Akira is summoned by Lucifer to the realm of Rem to close the portals that have begun appearing in the human world. They essentially work in opposite order.
This is a kid's game, by the way.
Akira's journey in the dark version to be slightly more difficult. Otherwise, not much has changed since the Game Boy Color games, besides the graphical upgrades afforded by the Game Boy Advance. Gameplay is mostly the same, and once again, fusion mechanics are different between versions.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's the same game with a new story and characters. Although it reviewed about the same in Japan, Western critics were less kind, calling the story uninteresting, while the combat was seen as slow and unbalanced. There were also
Okay.
complaints that it suffered from poor graphics and repetitive music.
Damn.
Due to the reception and poor Western sales, these would remain the only Devil Children games released outside of Japan. But the next release was a complete oddity, as it was one of the few Japanese exclusive games on the original Xbox. Shin Megami Tensei 9
Oh yeah, I've heard about this game.
2002 and was
I heard about this game.
originally
So
meant to be a lead-in for an eventual MMORPG. While the MMO based on 9 never came to be, the concept of a Shin Megami Tensei MMO did come to pass eventually. But 9 failed to live up to expectations, which isn't surprising considering how horrendously the Xbox did in Japan.
yeah.
There just wasn't enough of a player base to justify the creation of an MMO. The title of 9 references the possible alignments when playing the game. Law, chaos, and neutral are there, of course, but these are further developed by light, dark, and neutral paths.
It was a
Similar
weird
to
time in
Dungeons and
MMOs
Dragons.
back in the
So,
day,
for
especially
example,
Japanese
there's
MMOs
all light,
like
all
Fantasy
neutral,
Star
all
and
dark. Players
this,
took
for
the role of
example.
Kei Azuma,
There's just a
who could
dude
either
laying
be
in the
male or
ground.
female,
But
and it was set during the second half of Shin Megami
yeah, it's
Tensei
just
in
like
the lead-up to
console-based
Shin Megami
MMOs
Tensei
back
2.
then were just like
As the
weird
apocalypse
because you
has
need a
forced
network
players to
adapter.
navigate
Just
to
like
underground
ain't nobody
bunkers,
trying to get all that
many
shit.
people spend their time in a virtual world known as the Idea Space, which is modeled after 90s era Tokyo. However, glitches known as noise begin taking the form of demons and attacking the user base. This is a problem because, like any good online world, any damage inflicted virtually is reflected in reality.
Oh.
Kei is soon recruited into a team.
It's like
known as the
Sword Art
Developers
Online,
to
you
hunt down
guys.
noise and discover what's causing them. 9 represented a lot of firsts for the series. It was the first Shin Megami Tensei in 3D, as Mach X was a spin-off, and it was the first time a game was explorable from the third-person perspective rather than first-person or an isometric view. Players could also determine Kei's skin and hair color, while different shops around Tokyo allowed for even more clothing and hairstyle
Oh, there's a
options.
Jack Frost that
Combat
runs a
was where the game
store.
struggled, as it opted for a real-time system, though players had little input. It was possible to command certain action when a
Yo,
character's
the animations
came up,
on that
but
death.
otherwise, there were a few options beyond telling them to be offensive or defensive. Some have compared it to an early version of Final Fantasy XII's combat, though it lacked an equivalent to the Gambit system to allow for further customization. But combat isn't really encouraged, as no
See,
experience
y'all were
is
talking about an open world. Why Atlus don't do open world games? This was an open world MMO. People didn't like it.
Really, fights are more useful as a method of recruiting demons through the usual conversations, and naturally demons can be fused together to become more powerful. The twist on this comes in the form of the Kilo Devil values that the player has. If they only have 100 Kilo Devils, they can only summon 2 50 Kilo Devil demons or 4.
Although an open world setting in like a fictional Japanese in like city Tokyo and stuff like Tokyo Shibuya and all
While the
that
game was generally well
sounds
received
cool.
by those who played it, there just weren't a lot of people playing, ultimately resulting in a financial loss for Atlus. But it was only 3 months later, in February of 2003, that their fortunes turned around.
Oh, you guys, this is the game that we're going to be playing. This is a game that's going to make me mad and hate the Shin Megami Tensei series.
Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne was the first new mainline entry in the series since If, 8 years ago. And rather than continue from where Shin Megami Tensei 2 left off, it was decided to start fresh with the contemporary aesthetic of the original Shin Megami Tensei rather than the science fiction feel of 2. The use of the subtitle Nocturne was meant to help emphasize this.
Okay.
The team also built off the lessons they had learned while making Persona, Majin Tensei, and Devil Summoner to evolve the base Shin Megami Tensei gameplay. The cast of characters was kept purposefully small, with the
Go
team
hard
growing
difficulty
attached
or
to the
go
demons they
home?
recruit. Even Lucifer
Do
was
you
designed to
want
be
me
more
to
of a
not
testing
play the
observer
game?
rather than an outright villain, making the right decision less clear and more open to interpretation.
I would
The
literally
story focuses on a
literally
young man
die
who arrives in Tokyo to
in
visit a
real
friend
life.
in the hospital. While there, he hears of a clash between
Yo,
two
but the main
rival
character looked
cults.
kind of scuffed,
One
not
of the
gonna lie.
cultists attempts to kill him, but he's saved by his
That
friend
hairstyle is
and
not
taken to
good.
the hospital roof, where the pair witness the apocalypse.
No, I
in
would
the
just
form of
die
a
on stream.
conception.
Like when the
This
main
leaves
character
Tokyo
dies,
in
I
a
will
bubble
literally
known as the
die in the
Vortex
real world.
that's awaiting the next stage of its
Because
existence.
nothing is worse
while
than
demons
progression
wage
lost in a
war on one another,
JRPG.
and deities attempt to remake the world in their image. The young man is infused with a Magatama by Lucifer, transforming him into the Demi-Fiend, a being with the heart of a human.
So it seems like they're going a little bit into the story. So for Persona 3, when he goes into that, I'm going to skip it because I don't want to know anything.
World to discover his own power and decide the fate of everyone. Rather than the ending being only decided by following law, chaos, or neutral paths, the Demi-Fiend can ally himself with several factions that want to see the world reborn in different ways. It's also possible to choose no faction, and this doesn't even include the extra endings that were added to later re-releases. Like 9, Nocturne retains a third-person viewpoint whether exploring dungeons or engaging in battle, and it's here that one of the major hallmarks of battles in future games is introduced: the press turn system. Actions, whether a normal attack, a skill, using an item, or conversing with demons, always take one turn. However, if a character gets a critical hit, strikes the opponent's weakness, or simply passes, another turn is made available to them, making it possible to lay into an enemy before they can do much else, especially once their weaknesses are known.
So kind of like a baton pass?
Can be lost if an attack misses or is blocked. The tactic isn't exclusive to the player either, as enemies can utilize press turn as well. It emphasizes character strengths and weaknesses more than ever while expanding upon tactical options. Otherwise, the Demi-Fiend is always the only human in the party, with him able to take 3 active demons into battle, while 5 more can be held on standby to swap in, though it is possible to increase.
So you just have,
both the Demi-Fiend and
instead of having like a party member, you have personas.
Random stat gains to the demons, while players choose which stats get enhanced for the Demi-Fiend.
Or shadows or demons or whatever they're called here.
Which Magatama the Demi-Fiend has equipped. Depending on which is used, these will unlock new skills, grant passive buffs and
press turn system is Pokemon type advantage but hardcore.
While recruiting demons remains the same, Nocturne was also the introduction of the Demon Compendium, which registered a list of demons players obtained and allowed them to resummon them for a fee. This was also
Compendium is in here.
Shin Megami Tensei's
a luchador is also in here.
Bolstered by the success of mature titles like Grand Theft Auto, the localization team decided to translate it as faithfully as possible. Even
great.
Design documents by the development side to ensure accuracy.
I bought the Steam version. Is that a good version to play?
And the West. Some critics noted a lack of polish in some areas graphically and how difficult the game could be, but the unique setting and darker storyline made it stand out from other RPGs at the time. Many Western publications not only nominated it for RPG of the Year, but as one of the best games of the year. Nocturne also marked the first time mainline Shin Megami Tensei was brought to the West, and is likely why the 3 was dropped for the title. Its success is also why Shin Megami Tensei was used as the moniker for the series for a long time, even when it wasn't used in Japan, such as with the upcoming Digital Devil Saga and Persona 3. So, after this massive success, naturally the next game released in the series was a puzzle game in the Devil Children franchise.
Ooh, okay.
Granted, it's not like this was planned, but Devil Children Puzzle to Call released in July of 2003 as a spin-off taking place after the events of Light and Dark. The story is kept simple, as the protagonists from the previous game, Jin and Akira, are sucked into an alternate world, and it's up to their demon partners to rescue them.
That looks so goofy.
It's modeled after a Sokoban puzzler, where blocks have to be pushed to specific points in order to move on. However, puzzle is more about reaching a destination as marked by a pentagram. Eggs can also be found in each level, which unlock more demons to switch between and utilize their inherent strengths. There are also boss fights where players have to dodge attacks while reaching all the pentagrams on the screen. The game is generally considered fine, if not incredibly average. 2 months later, the final mainline Devil Children game released in Japan, Firebook and Icebook. This once again brings back the cast of Light and Dark.
Wait, do they have guns?
Akira must contend with the sudden appearance of towers in the city that lead to the demon and angel realms. This causes an outbreak of fighting between the two sides, potentially triggering the apocalypse. The two must find out what's happening while also saving
Jesus, there's so much stakes in this children's game.
Into the angel realm.
For SMT 3 on Steam, you might want to get a music mod because the music is compressed.
It's possible for Jin or Akira to take part in battle through the use of cards. These can increase their negotiation chances, prevent status effects, or increase the power of attacks, although only one can be used per battle. The cards can be bought in shops.
I'm not going to lie.
And awarded from battles.
These creatures, they're kind of disgusting.
Also made a little clearer, allowing players to see the parameters of the fusion so that their partner can be shaped as they see fit. Finally, it's possible to connect with Light and Dark to obtain demons that were exclusive to those games. Whether these changes improved the games is hard to say, as its Famitsu review score was lower than Light and Dark. The ripples of Shin Megami Tensei 3's success in the West
His
finally
Atlus was
took form with
OG
Shin Megami Tensei
clickbait
Digital
before
Devil
clickbait was
Saga,
made.
or Digital Devil Saga Avatar Tuner in Japan. This PlayStation 2 subseries was built off of Nocturne's engine, but broke away from many of the series' traditions, the biggest of which was the complete removal of demon negotiation and demon fusion.
Okay, then what do they
doesn't
have?
take place in the present day or apocalyptic future. Instead, it's set in a dystopian wasteland known as the Junkyard that takes inspiration from Hindu mythology and architecture. 6 tribes rule the territory of the Junkyard, with the only common ground being the Great Tower in the center where the Karma Society rules from. This balance is thrown into chaos when a white light causes everyone in the Junkyard to be branded with an Atma and awakened to demonic powers. But this has the side effect of awakening an insatiable hunger. If the people of Junkyard don't devour their foes, then they can go berserk.
Tell me in chat.
An amnesiac woman named Sarah is capable of calming their hunger.
None of these games are connected in any way, right? Outside of just them having persona or the same monsters in them, right?
Karma Society and told that they must conquer the other tribes, then ascend the tower if they want to reach Nirvana. This sets off a war where Surf must discover Sarah's origins, survive the other tribes, and discover just what Nirvana is. Digital Devil Saga builds off the battle system of Shin Megami Tensei 3, including the returning press turn system. But rather than recruit and fuse demons, the characters can transform into them, creating what's known as avatars.
Oh, it's like, remember in Digimon when they could become Digimon instead of just have them? That was kind of dope. I guess that's cool.
As a replacement for demon fusion, the game introduces mantra grids. This works somewhat like Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid, except there are several linear paths.
Mason, what did you ask me, bro? What's my favorite bug plug? That's really an important answer that needs to be answered.
Players can choose any path for the party, making for plenty of customization. However, the mantra grid utilizes 2 currencies. One is the
Is that a
currency,
valid
which
answer?
buys the
It's a little bit of a
different skills
cop
along the
out.
grid, but to master and
It's
use
just
them, players will
Persona
spend Atma
and
points,
even
which are naturally
their
earned from battle along with experience points.
even their
points can also be earned by devouring enemies, though this can't be done too often.
anthologies,
If a character gets a
Devil
stomachache
Digital
from eating, they'll
Saga,
have to deal
Persona
with a
2
debilitating status effect.
Okay.
There are also linkage abilities where characters can combine skills to create a bigger attack. The localization even attempted to match the Japanese cast of well-known
but
voice
generally
actors
on their
by
own.
casting
Okay.
equally well-known English actors and attempting to better sync the dialogue with characters' lip movements. It was a big deal.
I like the old art style better because it makes it look unique.
Was well received both in Japan and
Is that
the
a
West,
white guy
really
with
enjoying the
dreads? Oh
shift away
no.
From Shin Megami Tensei's usual tropes. Many did note that it could feel repetitious and were frustrated by its cliffhanger ending. Thankfully, fans wouldn't have to wait for long for the conclusion. Before that though, one final game in the Devil Children series was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2004, a spin-off known as Messiah Riser. This would see the return of Jin and Akira as they work to protect Valhalla from the return of the Imperium. To do this, they must
Yo,
find
bro, how's your
stones used by a
day?
legendary
Hey, what's going on,
Messiah
Crime
to seal
Mikey? My
away the
day is
ancient
doing
demon
good
that
so
now
far,
lives
or
in
my
the
night, I should say. It's like
story
12
is
a.m.
relatively
here.
straightforward,
My
but
morning,
what's truly
Jesus.
unique is the fact that this is a real-time
But yeah, we're
strategy.
just vibing,
This
talking about
thing
Persona and
complex as each
SMT.
demon only has a normal attack and a magic skill. Jin and Akira must travel the field of battle and summon demons, the amount of which is dictated by a cost. The 2 boys have a total pool of points with which to summon demons, and each demon subtracts from that total. More points can be earned during battle by finding special orbs, though the point total reverts to normal after each battle. While
Yeah,
it's
I'm asleep
impossible
on
to
this
negotiate
game.
With the enemy demons, they can still be
Why does the
recruited by
frame
placing
rate
one
look
of
so
Jin
bad
or
on
Akira's
this?
demons on the soul of the defeated enemy
They're
before
moving
it
so
disappears.
slow.
Using a demon of the same element grants a greater chance of success. Unsurprisingly, these demons can be fused together for stronger varieties. It's also possible to trade 10 of the same demon for a more powerful one in towns. While a unique concept for the Game Boy Advance, critics found the interface clunky to use, the combat options too limited, and the AI a bit chaotic. But this marked the end of Shin Megami Tensei attempting to appeal to kids, with every game after it aiming for an older fanbase. And that fan base wanted to see how the story of Digital Devil Saga 2
Did you watch Black Clover? How do you think it was 1 to 10? I think Black Clover is a solid 8. It's a good shonen anime. I have a controversial opinion. I think it's probably one of the best newish gen animes. I'm not talking about like Jujutsu Kaisen and them. I'm talking about My Hero.
Over the original game.
I think
This
it does
includes a new
good
berserk mode,
things.
which happens randomly and can be seen as the opposite of an ambush, as it offers an advantage to the party. Characters begin as a half-demon, unable to contain their power, with a massive boost to their attack and critical hit rate. However, this also lowers their defense and accuracy, creating a high-risk, high-reward situation. The mantra grid was also changed to a series of hexes where any skill mastered unlocks the mantras directly next to it, making it possible to learn later spells before earlier ones. There's also the karma ring system,
you gotta
which allows
go. I'm
characters to
sorry.
equip accessory-like rings that not only boost stats, but can be further
One Piece
enhanced with
rating.
gems that grant different advantages, such as starting
One
battles
Piece.
with a buff. It
One
should
Piece
be
is like a
said, though,
9
that
out of 10
skills
for
and
me.
Stats do not carry over from the first game and are instead reset, though having a previous save file does provide some stat
Gave me a
bonuses.
sub. Thank
The
you
choices made
so
in the
much,
first
Prime
game
Mikey.
can also affect how characters in
And
2
talking about
interact with
anime,
sub,
I have an
though
anime
none of it
reaction
changes the
channel. If you
story
haven't
or
took a
ending.
look at,
While
if you haven't seen it
Visual Novel
already,
Saga 2 is
I highly
generally
suggest you
regarded
check it out. We just
as fantastic
uploaded
and
episode
high
5
watermark for
of
RPGs on the PS2.
Solo, or
It's
episode
also
4
the
of Solo
second half of the
Leveling, I
story.
think.
It does attempt to summarize what happened in the first game, but it's generally recommended to play the first before starting this, especially as the story comes to a satisfying
Ooh, a black
conclusion.
character.
Moving to 2006,
And also, why the
that
fuck
year
would I
saw the
play
return of the
2
Double
before I
Starter
play
series
1?
after a 9-year gap from the release of Soul Hackers, though in a much different form. Devil Summoner Raido Kuzunoa vs. the Soulless Army was the first Shin Megami Tensei
That's a
game to be
name?
set in the past, specifically an alternate version of Japan's Taisho period in the 1930s. The player takes the role of the titular Raido Kuzunoa, a title passed down to Devil Summoners.
How do I make my thumbnails? I just normally just use Photoshop.
He joins the Narumi Detective Agency. One day, the agency is approached by a high schooler who asks them to kill her. Before they can learn more, soldiers in red armor
Took
abduct
me
the girl,
just
and
look up some
Raido takes it
tutorials
upon
about how to
himself
use
solve the mystery of this
Photoshop,
soulless army
and
while
it's
searching for the
pretty
missing
quick to
girl.
grasp.
The setting isn't the only change to the series, as Raido Kuzunoa is an action RPG. That doesn't mean random battles are
Yo,
gone,
this game
though,
looks
as
sick.
encounters
Oh, it's an
transition the
action
setting to a
RPG?
fighting arena.
Okay.
This isn't something like Kingdom Hearts or Devil May Cry, though. Sword combos are kept to a minimum, but Raido is also equipped with a gun that can fire different elemental bullets. This plays into demon weaknesses, allowing for a little more strategy. It's
This game
also
is
possible
sick.
to have one demon out at a time,
Alright.
which mainly fights on its own.
Oh, he
though
has a
basic
gun
orders
too. He
can
has
be
a
given.
blick.
This
Oh,
demon
my
can be
favorite
swapped out
persona,
with others
Ukobach.
whenever, though, to best take advantage of elemental weaknesses. Demon negotiations have been removed, as demons are instead captured by finding their weak point and stunning them. Fusion is possible.
So it's
but
literally
demons
like
must have a certain
Pokemon.
amount of loyalty
Okay.
to Raido, which is increased through use
But
in
again,
battle.
Power World's the only one
Loyalty
that took an
also expands
inspiration
the
from
demon's capabilities
Pokemon.
during fights, unlocking combo attacks with Raido's
And
sword
Pokemon
or
is
gun.
the most original
Fusion
IP
isn't
ever.
limited to combining demons either, as they can also be fused with Raido's sword to make it even stronger.
Okay.
But demons have more uses than simply fighting. They can be summoned at any time, each with their own special abilities, such as enraging people so they accidentally reveal clues,
Okay.
reading people's minds.
Yo, this is like a
and
detective
items.
game?
The demons can also just talk to the people of Tokyo simply to see their reactions. Unfortunately, the Soulless Army's encounter rate is about as high as past games, which can cause frustration as Raido hunts for a specific item. This basically boils down to interrogating everyone possible, trying demon powers on them, and seeing what happens until progress is unlocked.
Okay.
Having that interrupted by constant battles can lead to frustration, but critics noted that the pace of those fights are rather quick. Other criticisms include the lack of voice acting and visuals that seem
Oh, there's no
lesser than the
voice
series'
acting?
other PS2 offerings up to that point. Outside of this, many found the change in direction appealing and the story strong. However, the next game was a hallmark of the franchise.
Okay.
Shin Megami Tensei 3 might have begun the series' revolution in the West, but this cemented it.
Okay. We gotta skip it. Raido's a cool guy. Just in case he spoils anything about
Persona
3, I'm
released
not
in
trying to
July
hear
of
it.
2006 in Japan and marked a major shift in direction of the series. In April of 2007, Atlus tried one more time at creating an MMO based on Shin Megami Tensei.
Oh, Atlus was going
9
bankrupt
failed to
at the
happen
time?
on the Xbox. But for Shin Megami Tensei,
What kind of
Imagine on the PC,
music do I
the team
listen
worked with a new
to?
subsidiary
Mostly
of
rap.
developer Cave, known as Cave Online. This partnership took inspiration from South Korean MMOs at the time, as well as past games.
Oh no,
across the
not another
series. The
MMO.
result was a free-to-play MMO that met great success and even stayed active in the West until 2014, with Japanese servers staying active
hell is
until
this?
2016. Story-wise, much like 9, Imagine takes place between Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2 and continues on from the original game's neutral ending. It's all mostly window dressing though, as the game maintains a self-contained narrative. After the apocalypse, the survivors of Tokyo now live in Shinjuku Babel, where people known as Demon Busters protect the population.
Demon Busters.
However, 3 great obelisks have appeared, leading to an investigation and the rise of a conflict between the Order of Messiah, who followed the Great
I'm trying to bust on
and the
some
Ring of
demons,
Gaia,
succubus.
who follow Lucifer,
You can get
with
it.
the story shifting depending on player decisions, leading to the usual law, chaos, and neutral routes. In terms of gameplay, Shinjuku Babel serves as the home
Yo, look at
base,
this
where players
dude.
can accept quests, buy and swap equipment, and shop for other items. While most items could be bought with in-game currency, this was a free-to-play MMO, so higher-tier equipment was available for real money. Exploration could be done either alone or with a party, though groups were obviously recommended for more difficult sections. The combat takes place in real time, with there being 3 main classes: a short-range melee, a long-range melee, and a magic.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it later.
Can be further subdivided into attackers, healers.
I remember
and supporters,
Toontown.
thanks to the specialization
Game was
points.
peak back then,
However,
yeah.
these points were limited, so it was recommended to stick to one.
I can never get Toontown to work on my
Key
parents'
aspects of
computer.
Combat involved countering and guarding against demon attacks, most of which could be repelled with good timing. Player attacks were
But
executed
Wizard
with the
101,
mouse
that was my
or keyboard
jam.
shortcuts. Demon negotiation is present as
Yo,
well.
the frame
though it's
rate.
more limited and more difficult than past games. Allocating points toward the talk skill is almost a necessity, as it opens up more recruitment options such as bribery. But if a player is able to get demons on their side, they can have one active in battle with each demon.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, this MMO looks boneless as fuck. Not gonna lie. Just like the drip on the character.
For demons was also a necessity, as they were more
fucking
likely to do better in
Gandalf?
battle and agree to a fusion.
Who's
All in all,
that?
The game proved to be quite popular, garnering a player base of 100,000 people in Japan during its open beta, and eventually becoming one of the country's leading online games. Critics generally enjoyed the game's plot and more involved combat compared to other free MMOs, though many thought the game looked dated. That said, the English version was notably inferior thanks to poor management on the part of Nexon,
Damn.
with multiple big patches never coming west, including PvP. What made that exclusion especially galling to players was its entrance was right next to the tutorial mission's exit. The game's servers were kept online for 9 years, only stopping due to the increased difficulties in maintaining a quality experience. While Imagine was successful, 2008's release of Persona 4 could be seen as the true turning point that Persona 3 began. Building off of and refining the life sim elements of the previous game, Persona 4 featured a new transfer student who arrives in the rural town of Inaba while his parents work abroad. During the year, he stays with his uncle while attending Yasogami High School.
Yeah, Dojima, your mother's younger brother.
Yosuke and Chie, who tell him the new urban legend of the Midnight Channel. If you stare at a blank TV on a rainy night at midnight, then a strange figure will appear. The protagonist tries it himself and eventually learns that not only do the people who appear on TV eventually show up dead in the real world, but that he can enter the TV. Upon investigating further, the group learns that anyone who enters the TV world must confront their true selves, and if they can't accept the harsh reality, then they'll wind up dead. However, by accepting themselves, they can awaken to their personas.
I would accept my true self
rescue whoever
in an
enters the
instant.
TV world, or
Give me a
try to
persona
discover
right
the
away.
true culprit.
I don't care how
The goal
embarrassing
of
it
Persona
is.
4 was to ensure it didn't feel like a retread of Persona 3. To accomplish this, the developers wanted to give players a definite
As the
goal
best
and
anime.
sense
Stop
of
talking about the
purpose throughout
pachinko
the
machines.
The murder mystery plot served as the best way to accomplish that, but it also had the effect of making
Why are the
characters stronger
pachinkos
than
going
ever
so
before,
hard?
as character growth is inherently developed as each party member awakens to their persona. Another key element of this effort to avoid a retread was the weather system.
No, I wouldn't. I
which
would
affects
definitely
certain
do it.
social
I have no
behavior as
shame.
well as the Midnight Channel itself.
My
It
worst
also denotes
secret
the
is
amount of
just
time
like
the player has
nothing
left to
that
save the
I
culprit.
kind of
If the dungeon
am a
is
little bit of a
immediately done,
sociopath
then it'll be
sometimes.
game over. In addition, the social link system not only included people from around town, as in Persona 3,
My inner self
but the
would be
male party members as
Yosuke's
well,
inner
instead of
self.
just the female ones. They were notable exclusions, and their addition was needed due to the changes to social link rewards. Fusion bonuses returned as before, but increasing the social link with a party member expanded their abilities, allowing for a follow-up attack or granting extra skills for battle. Maxing their social link also caused their persona to evolve.
Persona
into a
4 would
stronger
hit different
form.
if someone
Time
had a
passes
sus
in much the
internet
same way as
history.
Persona 3, though options have been expanded and more time is available to hang out with different people. It's no longer possible to lose.
You saw two girls in one cup, and you enjoyed it.
Understanding, diligence.
That's not true.
Knowledge and expression.
That didn't happen.
Certain levels are needed for activities or to further social links like before. The dungeons are randomized once again, but rather than one central tower, there are multiple small dungeons themed to a character's shadow personality. The party also no longer gets tired within dungeons. Instead, the amount of magic is limited, making it naturally more difficult as more time.
What app do I use for thumbnails? Photoshop.
Really go as far as their restoration items allow, as there's no full heal option within. The dungeons
but Photoshop is a paid program, so if you don't want to pay for anything, use GIMP. GIMP. It's just like Photoshop, except it's free.
Fusion works exactly the same. This also applies to battles, with the major exception.
You're a furry, just admit it.
Of the party.
Nah, that's the one thing I wouldn't admit to.
And the strong characters made for an even more well-received game than Persona 3. While some noted that it was more of a refinement of what that game established, it was still seen as a marked improvement. Strong word of mouth led to even greater sales, with the game remaining Amazon's top-selling game on PlayStation 2 for 2 weeks in a row.
Damn.
As before, the style and music became a favorite, while particularly
people were ordering this off of Amazon.
Kanji, who's seen as one of the first video game characters to struggle with their sexual orientation. However, there are some gay panic moments from another character in relation to this that has drawn ire in retrospect.
Okay, I'm skipping this because I only made it up to kanji.
Raito Kuzunoa versus King Abaddon, which continued the adventures of the 14th Devil Summoner to bear the name.
I'm sorry?
A new danger brings Raito back to Tokyo, where a young woman asks him to find her brother as he abandoned their village in protest of her arranged marriage. But upon taking this case, Raito soon learns about a group known as the Tento Lords, the mysterious King Abaddon, and a horde of insects that have begun murdering innocent civilians.
They literally look like insects.
Many complaints about the original were taken into consideration to improve upon it. Random battles are still present, but this no longer applies to town areas. This means players can safely interview townsfolk without needing to worry about getting drawn into needless fights. Demons can still be used to obtain information, but the process of recruiting those demons has changed to the more traditional negotiation system. It's also possible to summon 2 demons at once rather than
2 demons at once. The processing power.
The series more in line with classic Shin Megami Tensei elements, and this included Raito's alignment and the multiple possible endings. Overall, the game improved upon its base gameplay, making combat quicker and more action-oriented with a larger field to battle on. Most of the systems in the original
this seems like my type of game.
Improvements done to all of them. Critics generally enjoyed Raito's second outing, but some missed the more focused plot of the original rather than the multiple endings introduced here. It was also the last Devil Summoner game in the sub-series, at least until the announcement of Soul Hackers 2.
What?
But one ending leads to another beginning, as the next title was the start of a new sub-series.
What the hell's Amara? Okay. This music sounds like The World Ends With You.
Roku Devil Survivor, which was given the same moniker as the original Persona to
oh, so this is the one that you're talking about, Devil Survivor.
Released only 2 months later in January of 2009. As had been the case, the West simply kept it as Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor to maintain brand recognition. The DS game stood apart from what came before by taking place
a DS
in
game?
Tokyo, specifically during a quarantine where people have been cut off from their family and homes. It gives the sense that it takes place as the apocalypse happens rather than before or after. The story focuses on the protagonist and his 2 friends who are given a device known as a comp by his older cousin.
Yeah, a DS?
While trying to figure out what the comps do, an outbreak of demons forces the Japanese government to quarantine the city.
Who does this art style? This art style is mad familiar.
Inside. This survivor mentality gives rise to vigilantes who attempt to fight the demons while preying on the weak.
You will know soon. You will know Mara
learn the source of
greatness.
The outbreak and protect each other as best as they can. This is aided by the protagonist's comp, which has a kind of death clock feature, allowing him to see a literal number over a person's head, showing how long a person has left to live.
Yeah, okay. They did Cyber Sleuth. Okay, thank you.
If something isn't done. In terms of gameplay, it can be best described as a hybrid of visual novels and strategy RPGs, though with some unique ideas of its own.
Okay.
The 7-day time limit is key, and every event viewed moves the clock forward 30 minutes. It will eventually funnel players toward a key battle, but the decisions of the player in terms of who to talk to and when make those choices much more vital.
Okay.
What you decide to focus on will lead to one of several endings, but the battles are where it differs greatly from many other strategy RPGs. While it still focuses on a grid-based map, only 4 characters can be used at a time, and each represents a team. There's the character themselves and 2 demons. What this ends up meaning is each team is their own Shin Megami Tensei party, and they can be moved around the map to fight other teams. However, each member of a team can also utilize one extra action separate from moving or attacking, whether that's limiting enemy movement or granting buffs and healing to the party. The actual combat plays out more like a typical RPG battle, with 3 on each side. Each character and demon has their own sets of moves that they choose, and, like the press turn system, an extra turn can be granted for hitting weaknesses or getting a critical hit.
Okay.
After all 6 participants use their initial move, the ones with extra turns get their second hit, but no more can be obtained in that round. There's also strategy in who you target during battle. The team leader is always in the center and takes less damage compared to the flanking allies. However, if the leader is defeated, the battle ends immediately. It can lead to a decisive victory, but it also limits how much experience and money can be earned. Oftentimes, it's better to defeat flanking enemies first, and that's especially true when it comes to the skill crack system and how it applies to abilities.
Devil Summoner is peak strategy RPG gameplay is intense.
That amount to combat options, 3 passive skills that grant bonuses
or
remove weaknesses, and a final skill that's determined either by the demon's race or a chosen squad buff for the human.
Along with, I haven't played that many like strategy RPGs. I tried to play Fire Emblem.
In each battle, enemies will have
I might revisit Fire Emblem eventually, but something wasn't clicking with me. I gotta figure that out myself.
With it, it will be available in the skill pool. From here, every human can be customized to play exactly as the player desires. And like other Shin Megami Tensei games, the other characters have stats that level automatically, while the player chooses how stat points are distributed for the protagonist. The final difference in gameplay is in regard to the demon auction, which is where new demons are obtained. Here, players will have to outbid other people to obtain the demon they want. Devil Survivor was generally well regarded by critics, with special praise given to the unique battle mechanics, though the battles themselves were labeled as too simple. It stood out from other strategy RPGs at the time, and some found it to be a sizable step up from the Majin Tensei strategy games. It was the 3rd best-selling game in Japan on the week of its release, and would even receive an enhanced version on the 3DS.
Ooh, I want to see what the 3DS version looks like.
To release on the DS in 2009, and unlike Devil Survivor, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey was part of the main
demonic
series.
eBay.
However, it is completely separate from the storylines of the previous games, opting to appeal to an international audience and take inspiration from a different genre of science fiction. The story takes place in Antarctica, where an atomic collapse suddenly occurs. This creates the Schwarzverse, a black void that envelops anything it touches and threatens to eventually engulf the planet. As part of a UN task force, the protagonist must enter the Schwarzverse, keep the demons within at bay, and discover why.
Not me hearing new demons as nude demons.
Taking a page from Etrian Odyssey, co-developed by its
I'll take a nude demon.
The game returns dungeon exploration to a first-person perspective, with the top screen showing the environment while the bottom displays the layout. This map also adds highlights for unopened containers and doors, though there are traps to be wary of. Pits, shifting floors, and dangerous tiles can damage the player while exploring.
That sounds like what that Devil Summoner game is, essentially just like digital demons.
Allowing it to eventually open new pathways and revisit past areas for rewards. Battles are kept mostly the same as before, though the returning press turn system is augmented by the demon co-op system. With this, if the player hits an opponent's weakness, any allied demon in their party matching their alignment will follow up with a heavy unblockable attack. Demon Negotiation and Demon Fusion return, of course, with alignments playing heavily in regard to which demons.
So this feels like basically Space Marines plus Persona.
The gameplay was balanced while still retaining the traditional challenge of a Shin Megami Tensei. Fusion was made faster and skill inheritance easier in order to encourage experimentation, while the ability to determine how the protagonist's stats were distributed.
It seems like every SMT/Persona game made past 2000 is a game that I'm interested in taking a look at to some extent.
Had to be shifted as these weren't normal people experiencing these events, but special forces. While it was widely believed that the game would have been called Shin Megami Tensei 4 if not for the Antarctic setting, that was eventually proven untrue. Strange Journey was always considered a spin-off, but many on the promotional staff thought it was strong enough to be labeled 4, and that sentiment was echoed by critics. At the time of its release, this was the highest rated Shin Megami Tensei game ever in Famitsu with a 36 out of 40. Many praised the exploration and tension established by the setting, though battles were seen as the biggest weakness. It was considered pretty standard save for the demon fusion, which helped maintain variety. Opinions on the plot ran the gamut, with some finding it meaty while others thought it was unoriginal but absorbing. Unfortunately, the game sold less than expected in Japan, though it too eventually saw an enhanced port to the 3DS. The next game wouldn't arrive until 2011 and took on a much different genre than the series had seen before. Catherine was Atlus's first game on HD systems, and it combined
this game
with a puzzle platformer to create something incredibly unique.
I want to play this game, but it's a puzzle game, and
there are Easter eggs
I suck at puzzle games.
Vincent cameoed in the PlayStation Portable version of Persona 3, and most importantly, the presence of law and chaos along with certain deities. There are enough connections to make it feel like the same universe, even without the Easter eggs. As for the story, it focuses on the character of Vincent, a 32-year-old man with no ambitions who has begun to feel pressure from his longtime girlfriend, Catherine, to take the next step. While he's unsure of what to do, he encounters a young woman also named Catherine at his favorite bar. The two end up spending the night together, but at the same time, Vincent begins having dreams where other men appear as sheep, and they must climb a massive tower.
Yeah, it's this part that I'm just like, nah,
Vincent
bro.
can't remember the dreams went away.
I can't with the puzzle.
It's conveyed that those who fall in the dream die for real. Vincent must confront his feelings, survive the tower, and learn what's really going on.
Some of the levels you need to Google, hell no. If there's like a very easy baby mode, I might consider playing this, but
Vincent's daytime activities. It's where the events play out until Vincent goes to his favorite bar at night, where he can talk to his friends, the other customers, and respond to any.
Because I think this game would be hilarious to play on stream.
These choices lead him to one of several alignments, which are always displayed after a decision, and determine which ending the player will eventually receive. When he leaves the bar, Vincent will go to sleep and enter the nightmare, where the great trials await. There, he must climb a tower made of blocks, which Vincent can push and pull as long as he has the space to move. The blocks will fuse together at their corners.
It's pretty easy, actually.
It begins with basic blocks at first, but ice blocks, spike traps, catapults, and more are introduced as time goes on. There are also other sheep who will push you from the ledge as they've entered a state of panic. Fortunately, there are items that can be found which allow Vincent to create blocks, automatically kill all enemies on screen, or climb faster.
Just playing on easy mode. Most of the levels are fun, but some levels are completely puzzle based.
Talk with other sheep to learn more about them and trade block pushing techniques that can be used if you so choose. There's also a confessional where Vincent is asked a question about relationships, and the response further pushes his alignment one way or the other. The game's difficulty was considered quite high.
Alright, do we got a Valentine's Day stream going? We're going to be playing Catherine.
To their surprise, the game was met with as much anticipation as a Persona game, and this was reflected in sales. The PlayStation 3 version topped Japanese sales
charts. Is this on PC?
And even managed to outsell Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which released on the same day, by a margin of 2-1.
Damn.
The game was Atlus's biggest launch to date and would eventually sell over 1 million units.
Damn.
Critics generally enjoyed the gameplay and story, though many noted that most of the characters were unlikable. Still, for a game made to help the developers come to grips with the new HD hardware before taking on Persona 5,
do you think cheating is okay?
An unexpected success. The second release of 2011 came about that July and marked the last time a non-Persona, non-mainline Shin Megami Tensei,
why was her titties up? Okay.
Entry was released in the series. There is one other that could be considered, but that's a crossover. It's up to you whether you'd count it or not, but for me, Devil Survivor 2 marked the occasion until the announcement of Soul Hackers 2. The story focuses on a new protagonist whose best friend introduces him to a new app called Nicaea. Supposedly, it's able to show images of their friend's death. This turns out to be true as they are warned of a train crash that would have crushed them and survived thanks to a demon summoning app that was suddenly installed on their phones.
Final Destination?
The train crash was only the beginning, as a series of disasters have struck Japan with demons and desperate survivors on the loose. The protagonist must use his new abilities to not only help the people, but fend off 7 mysterious beings known as the Septentrions. The structure of the story remains the same as the original. Every event passes time, so players must decide where and with whom they're going to spend it. This is made even more important with the introduction of the new Fate system. It works much like social links in Persona, as it allows players to spend time with different party members to learn more about them. As they rank up, new rewards are given, such as granting that character resistances to certain elements, unlocking new demons to fuse, and the ability to joint crack with the protagonist.
Okay.
Like the original, humans must gain new skills by defeating specific demons on the map with a declared character. With joint crack, either that declared character or the protagonist can earn that skill, making it much easier to add to the available skill list. Otherwise, most of the improvements are designed to flesh out the gameplay of the original. Higher level demons will now have enhanced racial skills. There are more physical skills that make
enhanced racial skills.
Unused humans will still gain a portion of experience. The Demon Compendium is available so players can easily resummon demons, and add-ons can be obtained that further enhance demons during fusion. Critics generally enjoyed the gameplay enhancements, though some found Devil Survivor 2 notably harder. The cast was considered more likable, helped by the Fate system, though it was noted that the choices during these moments made it feel more like a dating sim. While not a massive improvement over the original, it refined what was established. And that brings us to the era of Persona 4 spin-offs, and it all began with 2012's Persona 4
He said
Arena,
era,
a
that's...
fighting game taking place 2 months after the events of the original game. The protagonist, now given the official name of Yu Narukami, returns to Inaba during Golden Week to reconnect with his friends. But soon after arriving, they begin hearing stories of the return of the Midnight Champion.
Bro, some of the girls in this game, oh wow.
Their friends have gone missing, and the TV world has been transformed into a fighting tournament called the P1 Grand Prix, where they must fight one another in order to proceed. Stranger still is that 2 of their friends are now acting as the host and commentator to the fights. Each character must now explore the TV world to find why the Midnight Champion has returned and rescue their friends.
I would enjoy, but
the story is split between the playable characters, with each providing another piece of the puzzle until it culminates with a final story. There are 13 playable characters in
Persona 4 had like 4 games, I think. So that means 5 will have 5 games.
Fans and 2 original. Developed by Arc System Works, the game is largely built on their Blaze Blue engine, though many of the elements have been streamlined. Combat utilizes 4 buttons: a light attack, a strong attack, a persona
Come
attack,
on,
and a
Persona 5
While
Racing.
special moves are naturally included, there's also an auto combo option to help appeal to beginners. Although 2 buttons are dedicated to personas, they're typically more passive in combat, only appearing for an action before disappearing again. But this is important because any hit while the persona is out will result in the loss of a persona card. If all the player's cards are lost during the fight, a persona break occurs, barring the use of persona abilities for a time. There's also defensive
Persona Party game.
actions, which act as reversals.
Danganronpa did that shit. They did like a Mario Party thing.
Heal a portion of health, as long as the player isn't hit while the health bar is blue. All-out attacks have become all-out rushes in Arena, which can knock the opponent away or launch
I used to play this game all the time because I really loved Blaze Blue.
Advanced maneuvers. Players also
not knowing a single goddamn thing about what's going on. The white-haired guy was my favorite character.
And unique specials. Finally, there's Bursting, which breaks an enemy combo,
Bursting.
the SP gauge, and unlocks even more specials. Critics loved the sprites, feeling they took the next step from other Arc System Works fighters at the time, and fighting system, with many finding them easy to pick up while still incorporating much of what makes Persona unique. Less favorable was the story mode, which was derided for its slow pace and lengthy dialogue. Existing fans would enjoy it, but newcomers would find themselves bored. That didn't stop it from being a sales success though, as it outsold all other fighting games at the time, guaranteeing both a sequel and more Persona 4 spin-offs. But before that, there was a more significant release.
Got the one collector edition. Oh, signed by the VA, okay.
May 2013 marked the launch of the next mainline entry, Shin Megami Tensei 4, 10 years after the release of
My friend would not shut up about this one specifically.
Immediately after Strange Journey finished, due to the demands of longtime fans. It was quickly decided it should be released on the 3DS for player convenience, though after such a long gap between games, there was conflict between the teams.
The Axe-holding girl was probably my favorite of P4 Arena.
That Shin Megami Tensei was a bitter series, while the junior staff felt there should be some sweetness to it. In the end, both aspects were implemented in the areas that those developers were working on.
Whoa, what is
A
that?
major goal amongst the entire team was recapturing the punk feeling of the original Shin Megami Tensei. To that end, Shin Megami Tensei 4's world is completely separate from previous games, taking place in the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado. The protagonist, named Flynn, is undergoing training to
SMT
become a
4
samurai,
fun.
warrior is able to fight and control demons
Have a
while protecting
walkthrough
the
ready.
kingdom. After passing
Oh,
the
no.
test, Flynn and the other new recruits learn of someone calling themselves the Black Samurai, distributing cursed books to spread knowledge, causing some residents to turn into demons after reading them. The samurais put down the chaos and give chase, where they learn the truth of their world and must decide what to do next.
Okay.
Rather than the first-person perspective of Strange Journey, 4 returns to the third-person exploration of Nocturne. Like the recent Persona games, enemies can be seen walking around and preemptively struck for an advantage in battle. These battles still occur in first person, with playing alongside up to 3 demons and an AI-controlled human who provides support.
Okay.
The press turn system returns once more with the added wrinkle of the smirk status. When smirking, that character will do more damage, eliminate their elemental weaknesses, and increase their dodge chance. Demon
Okay.
negotiation and fusion have been slightly tweaked, as both now grant experience points for the player. It's also possible to choose which skills carry over after fusion, and a first for the main series.
Lapras is
Once a demon has learned all of its
oh,
available skills,
Lapras,
they can
the
recopy
robot
full
girl.
skill set, though there are limitations such as no passive abilities. However, if he already knows a skill that will be passed over, it will automatically grow in power and lower in magic cost. Each level also grants Flynn app points, which can massively change the game to your playstyle. If you want to fuse demons and fill out the compendium, there are apps that reduce the price of resummoning registered demons. If
Okay.
you want to stick with the same demon team, there are apps that increase their stat gains when leveling up. There's even a recommended fusion feature, as the developers had noted that newcomers weren't actually using fusion. All these changes were made in an effort to combat the image the series had garnered as extremely challenging over the years. Despite that, the game was still considered difficult, especially in the early hours, with easy mode only unlocking after repeatedly dying. It is possible to pay the in-game money to avoid a game over, but it is massively expensive, making it a questionable option. Shin Megami Tensei 4 ended up selling well in Japan, becoming the 30th best-selling game of the year. The battle system was near universally
I mean, that doesn't
praised,
sound good.
despite the
30th.
difficult intro and various spikes. The allowances for newcomers were seen as a welcome change. Everything else about the game was a more mixed reception. Overworld navigation was considered difficult to follow, and the story was hit or miss, especially when it came to the characters. Most were considered forgettable, merely there to represent the moral alignments that would lead to the multiple endings. It's a shame too, as this was the first mainline Shin Megami Tensei game to feature full voice acting.
Oh.
Still, its return was seen as a success. The end of 2013 saw the release of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, a sequel to the original that expanded and refined its gameplay. While Arena's
There are
story
so
was
many
mostly
of these
wrapped up,
games,
it
you
was decided
guys.
to leave it open enough that a sequel could bring it to a proper conclusion. With the success of Arena, Ultimax would quickly enter production.
Low key,
The story
I could
picks up
legitimately
only a
just
day
play
after the
all of these
events
games
Arena,
for the rest of
where
my
Yu
life,
discovers that the
and
Midnight Channel
that's
is
it.
already back on the air, as it broadcasts an announcement for the new P1 Climax tournament, followed by a visual of figures from Persona 3 being crucified. Only a few moments after, Inaba suffers a power outage as a red fog blankets the town. This causes elements of the TV world to seep into the real world, while parts of Inaba become replicas of locations from Persona 3. Whereas Arena's story was split between the playable characters,
Damn.
Ultimax streamlines things by featuring episodes. Episode P4 and P3 focuses on the characters from their respective games as they explore Inaba, try to rescue their friends, and learn more about their true enemy. There are 8 new characters in the game along with the original 13, bringing the total to 21. This includes Rize in her first playable role, 3 more characters from Persona 3, a brand new character, and 3 DLC characters. In terms of gameplay, there's a host of small changes and tweaks that improve the overall gameplay, but some of the bigger additions are the skill hold system, which is a special attack that changes properties the longer the weak attack button is held down. There's also the skill boost SP attacks that allows characters to perform an even more powerful SP skill at the cost of more SP meter. The Persona card system has also been tweaked so that each character has a different amount. If
Okay.
they have less, then they'll recover from Persona Break more quickly, and vice versa if they have more cards. Finally, there's the introduction of Shadow-type characters for most of the cast, which feature altered stats and access to a Shadow Frenzy mode rather than a burst. This grants the Shadows unlimited SP for a short amount of time, as well as more health.
I'm guessing you're going to be playing Reload. Yes, I'm glad you asked. Yes, I am. Friday, expect a live stream. If there's no live stream, expect a video of some sort of the first part of Reload.
Every character was of particular note, with the game still looking impressive. It was considered a high watermark in Arc System Works' fighting game design at the time, and while its first week of sales didn't surpass the original, its eventual sales numbers did. Although, as I mentioned, Ultimax was designed to
Are you doing the DLC also? Yeah, I'm covering everything. I'm locked in, baby. Like, this is... I'm addicted now. You guys, you fucked me up. I got addicted to this shit. Like, I just really fuck with Persona 5 a lot, but now I'm interested in looking at everything.
The team worked together with the Etrian Odyssey team to combine the gameplay elements of both series.
Oh, this one.
To better fit the limitations of the 3DS, the
supposedly the most underrated game ever.
With the aim to create a title for fans of the Persona series, which led to the crossover between Persona.
Welcome to Hell? Oh no.
The story, considered canon by the developers, can be started with the cast from either game, but they'll meet up eventually. The Persona 3 characters begin by making preparations to explore Tartarus. While its protagonist is visiting the Velvet Room, something odd happens and the rest of the party is transported within it. Not long after, the Velvet Room begins to fall as it's housed within an elevator. Still confused about what's going on, the party opens the Velvet Room to find themselves in Yasogami High from Persona 4 during a cultural festival.
DLC monsters tend to be overpowered, and I want to go in raw low.
The Persona 4 cast begin at their own cultural festival, where their Velvet Room attendant invites them into a fortune-telling booth. But upon leaving, they find the school has changed, and a clock tower that's been gone for years has suddenly reappeared. Like the other cast, the only way forward is through U.N. Wonderland.
So I'm gonna have to figure out how to play this specifically, because there's a feature apparently in these games
While the stories are
that involves you tracing out a map or some shit. I don't know.
Story events. The gameplay is a combination of the exploration of Etrian Odyssey and the battle mechanics of Persona.
Persona Q is fun, but the dungeon design in the in-game is actually nightmarish.
This does not include the navigators from each game, who offer their own unique support skills. The game is split between the high school and the labyrinths. The school acts as a base of sorts where players can heal their party, sell materials for money and to unlock new equipment, and perform Persona fusions. True to their name, the labyrinths are large mazes where players navigate in first person and must find a set of stairs in order to move on to the next floor. However, fully exploring a floor will cause a treasure chest to appear, making it possibly worthwhile to stick around. Players can also create their own maps.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Mapping mode, the game encourages doing this manually, as the bottom screen's touchpad can be used to draw in walls and add icons to represent landmarks that make each revisit easier. The labyrinth not only features random encounters with shadows, but stronger enemies on the map known as foes. These are more powerful encounters that move when the player does, so careful movement is required to avoid their.
I gotta see how the emulator works with that. I might do a test one of these.
These allow extra personas, which are received randomly after a battle, to be assigned to the party, granting more health, magic, and a set of new abilities. This allows players to use the characters they like without having to worry about team balance in terms of elemental affinity. There's
oh no, not team balance.
Which is built up by
yeah, the DLC persona you get tends to
while boosted skills cost no health or magic for individual party members, while multiple
I mean, I might buy it, but I'm not going to use any of it till later, because I was told not to do that for Persona 5 Royal. So
players must maintain the status by continually hitting weaknesses or criticals. The game was well received by critics, many of them enjoying the satisfaction of creating their own maps while taking in the excellent presentation, especially the music. While many felt the interactions between returning characters were fun, the new characters took a while to reveal their point and came across as flat until that moment. It was met with strong sales as well, topping the charts the week of its release in Japan, while seeing modest success in the West despite heavy competition. There's still one more Persona 4 spin-off to cover, and it's a personal favorite of mine. Persona 4 Dancing All Night released a year later in June of 2015 for the PlayStation Vita. After years of praise for its music, it made a certain amount of sense to make a rhythm game. What was unexpected was how it continued the story of Persona 4, at least somewhat, as it features the characters coming together to help Rise, the former pop idol, to break back into the industry. In order to give her encouragement, the rest of the cast will be backup dancers at an upcoming music festival, but soon learn of other idols going missing. Upon investigating, they discover a new world known as the Midnight Stage, which has brainwashed the idols. Unable to fight directly,
sorry about that.
Must save them by expressing their
How did I like
feelings through
Royal?
song.
So far I'm only like
This means Dancing All Night is a rhythm game and doesn't stray too much from the established
I
formula
finished
of the
the
genre.
Madarame,
Chosen
or
character will dance in the center
no,
of
I
the screen while
finished
flanked by
the
button
Makoto
movements
part.
corresponding to that
We're
side
on
of the
there.
controller. Up,
I
left,
had to
and down
pause the
left
game
side,
because
and triangle, circle, and
a whole bunch of
crossbars
other
to the
stuff
right.
came out at the time.
Notes appear in those
But I
spaces,
like it
which
so
must be
far.
hit in time with the music, with more complex combinations coming over time, including simultaneous notes, holding notes, and the scratch rings. These circles
The VODs are going to be
cover all
uploaded
inputs
onto my
and
second
require the player
channel.
to flip the analog stick at the right time.
Lumen is
This
alive.
doesn't break the score multiplier, but hitting enough scratch rings is required to enter fever mode, an opportunity to earn even more points as a second character joins for a short time. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Clearing songs unlocks more, along with money that can be used to buy new costumes and accessories for the 11 base game characters. There are 27 songs in total from across all of Persona 4 media, with many being new remixes. DLC was a big part
Yeah,
of
in the
game
Q
post
games,
launch
you
as
have to
well,
like draw
which
out your
added
own
13
map.
more
Yeah.
songs, 3 more characters, and a host of new costumes and accessories. Most critics responded well to the game, enjoying the song selection, remixes, and style. The story was less well received as those sequences tended to drag and could take up a lot of time before the next song. Some felt there were better rhythm game options out there, but the game sold well enough that a sequel was greenlit immediately. 2015 had one more game in store, a crossover between
Okay,
Shin
this
Megami
one I was
Tensei
the
and
most
Fire Emblem
interested
that
in,
few saw coming.
because it was
Tokyo Mirage Sessions
Fire
sharp
Emblem
at
and
While
Shin
there was
Megami
debate over
Tensei.
what style the game would ultimately emulate, it was decided that Atlus would handle development and were encouraged to create something original to the RPG genre. This eventually led to the decision to set the game in the modern-day entertainment industry and eschew many traditions of Shin Megami Tensei. The protagonist wouldn't be silent. There was a
All right, so when we get to eventually when we get to this game, because I'm going to play this one as well. What Fire Emblem game should I play as like a? If any of you guys know, if any of you guys fuck with Fire Emblem, which Fire Emblem game should I take a look at before getting into this? Because I feel like I could just raw dog it and just like say fuck it, I don't know any of these characters or whatever, or anything about Fire Emblem, or I can do a little bit of Fire Emblem just to test the waters.
Side stories were just as important as the main plot. Said story focuses on Itsuki Aoi, a young man who encounters his schoolmate Tsubasa during a
Three
talent audition
Houses?
event where she hopes to begin her career as a pop idol. Instead, something strange has come over the MC of the event who causes everyone there except Itsuki
But it's
and Tsubasa
long.
to become listless. He then throws Tsubasa into another world called the Idolosphere. Itsuki gives chase and eventually awakens his Performa, allowing him to form a bond with
I'm sorry,
Mom,
Performa,
also
not Persona,
the same as
Performa.
Shida. From there,
Yo, it's
there is
Rasengan.
Fortuna Entertainment, which both manages talent from multiple entertainment industries and combats the beings known
Fire
as
Emblem Three
Mirages.
Houses,
Now,
it
they
has
must
the
simultaneously
most
begin their
compelling
careers in
story
entertainment
in the
while trying to
universe.
stop the
Okay.
Mirage's plans. The game is split into chapters, with each chapter continuing the main story and introducing a new Idolosphere location. But in between are intermissions, which allows the player to spend as much time as they want doing side quests and learning more about the rest of the party through their side stories. Exploration within the Idolosphere remains typical to Shin Megami Tensei at this point, with Itsuki able to run around solving puzzles and choosing to either dodge enemies or strike them for an advantage in battle. Those battles involve a party of 3, with much of the focus on a new variation of the press turn system, session attacks. By attacking an enemy's weakness, it's possible for another party member to perform a follow-up attack, as long as they have a skill linked to the one used. This in turn may trigger another party member to follow up as well, creating a chain of attacks from massive damage. Of course, session attacks can be performed by the enemy.
So it plays like it plays like Shin Megami
These sessions
Tensei.
also increase a character's stage rank, and with each level, more of their side story can be seen. Attacking also naturally builds up a special meter, which can be expended to use performance attacks. More of these are unlocked by completing the character's side stories, rewarding players for learning more about them. This also leads to dual attacks, where characters team up for even more damage. Aspects of Fire Emblem come into play through enemy weaknesses, which, along with elements, now includes swords, axes, lances, and bows. It's also possible to visit Tiki to power up the party through either Carnage Unity or Radiant Unity.
God Hatsune Miku's in this game. You said, say nothing less. Say nothing less. Say less.
These not only increase their strength,
I should say less. I don't know how to speak.
that the character can eventually learn. Command skills are the different attacks, passive skills offer stat boosts, and session skills are what tie attacks together for session attacks. However, each character can only hold 6 skills of each type, though they can be powered up further if the skill is learned multiple times. Radiant Unity is unlocked either through story progression, clearing a character's side story, or increasing their stage rank. These permanent skills grant more health or extended session attacks. Although critics were split on the story, some found it too predictable and slow, while others enjoyed the over-the-top aspects and cheesiness, many felt there wasn't enough Fire Emblem representation to balance the crossover, though the battle system was almost universally praised.
Oh no.
It's generally considered one of the best games on the Wii U, but releasing on that system did lead to only modest sales. Only a few months later,
yeah, this game made hardcore Shin Megami Tensei fans angry.
Apocalypse was released on the 3DS. Rather than an enhanced re-release, the developers decided they wanted to see what they could do with the characters.
I don't know, it looks fun, it looks colorful and bright.
The story focuses on the Nashi, a demon hunter who was killed by demons. In the afterlife, a demon named Dagda offers to resurrect him in exchange for becoming a god slayer.
Ooh.
And that is meant literally, as Dagda desires Nanashi to kill every demon and god so he can remake the world.
Okay.
Nanashi's decisions from this point will sway the lives of those around him and the characters from the original story. The gameplay has mostly stayed the same, though there are a host of minor updates to the systems of the original. Among these changes is an update to negotiations where meeting the same demon again after failing to recruit it will pick up where you left off rather than having to restart the conversation entirely.
Alright, that sounds fun.
Where they will do more or less damage with an ability depending on their preferences. The Demon Compendium also marks whether a demon has been registered or not, and the overworld map was made easier to read.
Dadgum, my daddy.
Critics appreciated these changes and refinements, especially the graphical improvements, though they also realized that not much was new beyond the story. Sales-wise, the game sold nearly 100,000 copies in its first week in Japan, half of what the original managed.
So I'm not. So this is Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. Is it like a sequel to Shin Megami Tensei 4?
Seem paltry in comparison to the juggernaut that was about to come.
Yeah, this is what got me into Persona.
After an extended development cycle and multiple delays, Persona 5 would release on PlayStation 3 and 4 in September of 2016. These delays were due to the team attempting to nail down what story they wanted to tell and how the series would evolve. Ultimately, the developers decided on the theme of freedom and social change, which had been on the rise in Japan after the lackluster government response to the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami.
Okay.
They also felt that this would make the game more approachable to newcomers. The story takes place in 2016 and focuses on a new protagonist who's been sent to live in Tokyo with a family friend after being framed for assault. No one believes in his innocence, causing him to immediately be put on the outskirts.
Yo, the backstory is insane.
Problematic nature. But as he begins settling into this new life, a mysterious app appears on his phone and eventually triggered by accident, sending him and another boy into an alternate world. They soon learn that this place is known as the Metaverse, where the collective unconscious takes shape. Within this space, people with strong distorted
I've seen like
However, these corrupt people
I took it with a grain of salt, but I saw a video about or a thumbnail for a video saying that there was like leaked images of leaked information about Persona 5 beta.
This in turn brings them fame.
Is it something interesting to take a look at? I'll probably take a look at it like some other time, but
to change all of Japan. The scope of the story is certainly impressive, but the gameplay changes have been refined to both improve upon what came before.
It was going to have a grown-up Nanako.
Are essentially gentlemen thieves.
How far does Persona 5 take place after 4?
As it takes place in Tokyo, the protagonist, who's given the codename Joker, has far more
I mean,
options
technically,
in terms of
Ryuji
what
got
he can do in
abused by
daily life.
Kamoshida off
Part-time
screen,
jobs,
so.
video games, movies, baseball,
And there was a
fishing,
lot of sexual
exercising,
abuse
making
already in
equipment for
Persona
use in
5.
the metaverse, and even going to the bathhouse are all options and all make time pass. Each one provides a benefit, whether it's increasing the returning social stats, preparing for the metaverse, or increasing his physical stats like
it takes place like
magic.
5 years after.
Social links return,
There was a model of a
though they are now known
12-year-old
as
Nanako.
confidants and do more than increase the bonus experience points when fusing personas of that arcana. These can range from unlocking extra free
so
time
about
during
5
school
years.
to improving guns and gun abilities, and even swapping teammates during battle. And those are only examples of non-party member benefits. Your allies can gradually learn the new baton pass, a follow-up attack, how to help during negotiations, how to recover teammates from status ailments, and more. All these elements come together for a greatly expanded battle system. One of the biggest changes from recent Personas was that shadows no longer appeared as original enemies, but as demons from other games. In turn, negotiation was required to obtain new personas rather than shuffle time, though extra items or money could be earned from this as well.
I want to say this right here might be controversial. I despise the negotiation system, mainly because I don't think the localization did a good job of like display, conveying.
However, there was some lenience.
Like,
if players lost against a
how they want the personality to be,
where you can save in the middle of dungeons. But if players die during a boss
but I
battle,
guess it specifies if a character is gloomy or like happy or whatever. But still, the options that they have you to select, I don't know if this is the correct response to the answer that they're giving.
A button press away, cutting back on menu navigation significantly. Combat-wise, options have been expanded compared to Persona 3 and 4.
Persona 5 was also going to be Final Fantasy 15 before 15.
Type of gun, in addition to the melee weapon with weaknesses reflecting this.
No, you got the Morgue bus, you got the Morgana bus.
Again, as party members who have earned the baton pass ability can use it in those situations. When an enemy is knocked down, the option will appear. This allows them to pass their turn to another party member who might possess a different enemy's weakness.
But Baton Pass is godly. I hope Baton Pass is in 3 Reload.
The pass streak, the greater the attack bonus and healing the next party member will receive. Once all enemies are knocked down, the party will hold up the enemies. This is how negotiation is initiated, or players can unleash an all-out attack for massive damage. Dungeon exploration has seen some changes as well, with the biggest being the palaces themselves. They are not randomly
It also might have a
and
cautionary
instead
as there are
follow a
parts
set
that may
design,
have been
allowing for
slandered
specific
towards
set
certain
pieces to
parties.
further expand the story.
If it took place in
Randomized dungeons
2016,
aren't completely gone, as there is a
I
place
didn't know it took
for
place in
windows,
20XX.
which
I just
further
assumed it was like
expands as
around
story
the
progresses.
time frame was
Here,
around the
players
date
can
when
try
it
to gain
came
more
out.
experience, fulfill side quests, and hunt for more personas. It's all the more necessary as a palace cannot be revisited once it's been completed. While in a palace, stealth is greatly emphasized with the party able to quickly travel between hiding spots and
Yeah, I didn't look at the battle strategy trailer because I feel like that would be a little bit too spoilery. I want to be surprised about some of the gameplay mechanics.
These changes and updates led to Persona 5 being met with near universal acclaim, with many critics praising not only the gameplay but the sheer style, both graphically and musically. It has become widely considered one of the best modern JRPGs to date. It's not without criticism though, as the translation was seen as mediocre, and scenes featuring 2 gay men played into unfortunate stereotypes. Still, word of mouth of its quality spread, and sales reflected this, with the game becoming the best-selling in the game's history.
I like how that was controversial, but like not the teacher dating, potentially dating a student was, or you dating grown-ass. Well, I guess age of consent in Japan is different.
Better than Persona 4, with it eventually reaching 5 million copies sold worldwide, including its enhanced re-release, Persona 5 Royal. It was almost a year before the next original title was released, taking the form of something quite different. Shin Megami Tensei Synchronicity Prologue was considered a hoax when it was first shown as part of a trailer for the upcoming Strange Journey remake. But 3 days later, on October 16, 2017, it was made available to download for free on Atlus Japan's website. The game takes place before the events of Strange Journey and focuses on a Jack Frost whose mind has been synchronized with a human's in order to fight demon hordes. It's not long before he's joined by a friendly jack-o'-lantern, and the two team up to help a creature calling itself J-Kun. Their journey leads them to Black Frost, who holds a portion of J-Kun's human mind and must be defeated to save him. But this prologue is no RPG. It's a Metroidvania developed by Team Ladybug, who would go on to create Touhou Luna Nights and Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth. Jack Frost and Jack-O-Lantern use their innate abilities to explore and find upgrades to prepare for greater
did he freeze the water
Jack Frost is able to freeze enemies in water, while Jack-O-Lantern can melt ice. The game also includes elemental weaknesses and affinities for every character, and many of the upgrades allow the pair to obtain skills that strike at weaknesses other than ice or fire. Their immunities tie into boss battles where quick switching is necessary to dodge attacks of the opposing element, giving the encounters the slight feeling of a bullet hell
you're
shooter.
fighting like other demons.
Characters level up and can shop for recovery items, while teleporters allow them to quickly travel around the map. The game was well regarded, but sadly was only available for 2 months, as Atlus removed it on December 24th, 2017.
Am I still able to get that?
24th, 2018, as Persona fans were treated to both Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. Like Dancing All Night, these served as rhythm games based around the music of their respective games and filled with new remixes. The stories are much less involved than their predecessors though. The Velvet Room attendants in each game have heard of the success of Persona 4's group and decide to throw a dancing competition to see who has the better team.
That's the story?
The
okay.
never actually meet, and instead the focus
the
is on social
Metroid
interactions
is on
between
Internet
characters, which
Archive.
grant them slightly
I think
more
it has a
depth,
fan
along with
translation.
unlocking new
Cool.
costumes and accessories. Beyond the lack of a real story, the gameplay is essentially the same as Dancing All Night.
Okay.
The biggest addition was more aesthetic in nature, as the team decided to use professional dance models for the choreography. This wasn't done for the Persona 4 cast, as they were supposed to be newcomers to dancing with their movements kept stiff. But with the story mattering little in the sequels, each character was modeled after
It's a dance-off.
dancer. There are 25 tracks in Persona 3, while Persona 5 features 26. Over 30 more songs that could be shared between the two versions were released as DLC, along with 8 more playable characters. This led to one of the major criticisms of the games, as many found the song list to be too limited, especially when a single song was used multiple times.
Yo, this looks complicated. Maybe I don't want to play this anymore.
But critics were split on the change to the story. Some thought it worked, while others felt they lacked substance. The games were modest successes in Japan, though many suspect it was not helped by them being sold at full price, despite similar content between them. That said, Persona 5's version sold better overall. Naturally, if Persona 5 received one follow-up to a previous spin-off, there was no reason it couldn't have another, and that's just
I
what
thought the
happened,
intro
as
to this
Persona
one was
Q2
fire.
New Cinema Labyrinth released in November of 2018, bringing together the cast of Persona 3, 4, and 5, along with the female protagonist from Persona 3 Portable. In an effort to keep the story focused, the ability to choose which group to start with was removed. Instead, the story begins with the Persona 5 cast exploring more of Mementos. As they do, they are suddenly pulled into a random movie screen, which takes them to an unknown
It was a high
city,
difficulty.
where they're still
I
able
was
to use their persona.
I was sweating for a
They're soon
second.
ambushed and forced to flee through another movie screen, finding themselves in an abandoned movie theater with no exit. Now they must explore the worlds of the movies in order to set them right and open the way back home, all the while meeting the other Persona casts along the way. Many of the changes made to Persona Q2 involve making the game more accessible to new players.
The blick to the head.
And the horror elements of the first game were toned down, while the labyrinths were made easier to navigate. It's also possible to form a party without using any of the 3 protagonists, and this customization was carried over to Personas as well. Sub-Personas return and work the same as before, but the main Persona now has 6 skill slots that are filled by the abilities they inherently learn. These skills are also no longer
Can't wait to
forcibly
pay for
upgraded into more
FMC for
expensive
$70
versions,
in a few
allowing players
years
to
for
choose
Persona 3
precisely which ones
Reload
are in their
B.
loadout. All-out attacks were made easier.
Is that what they plan on doing, or is that speculation? Because if that's what they plan on doing,
knocked down, making it possible for multiple characters to trigger the all-out attack in a single turn. The game was well regarded by critics, with many feeling that although it may not convince newcomers to check out Etrian Odyssey type gameplay, it was a worthy send-off for the 3DS. After all, this was the last major release for the system in North America. Persona 5 would eventually have one spin-off entirely unique to itself, and a first for the Shin Megami Tensei series, a warrior-style game released on February 20th, 2020 under the name Persona 5 Strikers. The game was marketed as a direct
sounds
sequel to
about
Persona
right.
5 and mostly fulfills that promise, picking up 4 months after the end of the original. Joker
But like when Atlus milks it, like they milk it in a way that's good. Like they make a whole new game like this, Strikers.
as it
but
essentially
not
acts
just
as
like a
digital
B-side
assistant.
to
While
a
buying
game.
supplies for the trip, they are given a passcode for Emma that somehow transports them to an alternate world similar to the metaverse, where they have access to their personas, though they've lost their
Prominent
previous
Persona
strength. The
leaker
group soon learns
suddenly
that this
asked
alternate
about
world is being
expanding
used to change
games
the
with
personalities of
DLC
people in
for
the real
using
world,
release.
and the police have named them the top suspects. Now they must go on a journey across Japan to discover the real culprit behind this new scheme. Rather than focus on massive battles like most Warriors
it's a
games,
road trip.
Strikers adapts many of its gameplay elements from Persona 5 while giving the player more freedom to explore. Time no longer passes when doing activities, and it's possible to enter and exit the other world at any time, allowing the characters to fully heal or go shopping for more supplies. There are also side quests to discover.
I don't know
in the
if
kitchen where Joker can cook up food
if
that will
people,
provide
if the same
healing
amount of
and
people
temporary
fuck
stat
with
bonuses during
SMT
combat.
as they did with
Like
Persona,
5,
I would much
Shadows
rather
can see
they
wandering
just
around
cycle
the dungeons,
between
known as secret
Personas
jails,
and mainline
confronting them will
SMTs like
initiate a battle. Rather than a
SMT
massive
6,
amount of
Persona
enemies,
6,
these encounters generally only
SMT 7,
involve a
Persona
handful.
7, and
Larger
switch it
combat
out that
sequences
way.
do occur, but they're generally spread out as the gameplay does emphasize stealth. In battle, the party is made up of 4 characters, though Joker is always required. The playable character can be swapped at any time, while the entire party can be interchanged outside of battle. The combat itself features the usual Warriors extended combos and finishers, though the characters can summon their personas at any time, which will pause the action and allow a moment for planning. Naturally, as the personas level up, more skills become available. There's also a special meter known as Showtime,
this was
where a
fun.
character can unleash a powerful special attack. Unlike Persona 5, negotiation isn't required to obtain new personas for Joker.
P5 Strikers being a road trip type story was definitely reuse of the precursor story for
Rather than
5.
Confidants, Strikers introduces the bond system, which powers up the team as a whole by spending bond points.
Yeah, that
These are earned through a meter that's gradually filled by defeating enemies, reaching certain points in the story, socializing with the rest of the team, and completing side quests. Once the meter is filled, a set amount of points is granted to spend or save. The bond enhancements range from increasing stats for the party to raising damage from certain types of attacks to an increased drop rate with 30 different options in total.
I guess like at a certain point you become attached to these characters and you want to see them more often.
It was the character interactions.
So I guess that's why people fuck with these.
Praised for how well it melded the mechanics of Persona and Warriors, and its success continued as it hit 1.5 million units sold worldwide only 4 months after its Western release. And that brings us to the latest title as of this video, Shin Megami Tensei 5. For the first time, the game was released simultaneously around the world.
The drip is absurd here. You thought the uniforms in Persona 5 were like overly designed.
3 and 4, 5 does not pick up from previous games. And
I would go to this school. What school is this? I need to go to it.
A school student who is caught up in a mysterious earthquake along with 2 friends. In its aftermath, they discover they've been transported to an alternative apocalyptic version of Tokyo that's engulfed in a war between angels and demons. The protagonist is saved from certain death by a being known as Aogami, and the 2 fuse into a forbidden entity known as the Nahubino. Together, they must work with the remaining humans.
Okay, you just fuse just because?
And bring an end to the conflict. In order to evolve the gameplay even further within Shin Megami Tensei 5, a number of changes have been introduced. One of the biggest is the step away from traditional dungeons, with players exploring the verticality of the open world much more often.
I mean, this looks good.
By the addition of a jump button. There are dungeons, but they only appear at certain times. Demon negotiation and fusion remain essentially the same, though players can obtain an item called a grimoire to boost a demon's stats if they discover a favorite. The biggest change is the essence system.
I mean, the protagonist looks like they can be any gender they want to be.
Or change the Nahubino's skills and attributes.
I evolved and I became beautiful.
And resistances, which can help better prepare for difficult encounters. And the game continues to be challenging, as even the casual difficulty left some forced to grind and fuse to better survive.
Damn.
Thankfully, there is a safety mode for those looking to check out the game with little resistance. One way the game communicates the difficulty of a given area is through the new obsesses. These obstacles obscure an area of the map and must be destroyed. In doing so, a set of enemies will appear which denote the relative power of the area enveloped by that abscess. Defeating them will clear the map and unlock new miracles to purchase. These are equivalent to the apps that granted various benefits in Shin Megami Tensei 4.
I would take it. I'd rather be gorgeous than ugly.
There are collectibles to find in the form of Mimin, which award glory, the currency used to purchase miracles, and demon statues, which grant bonus experience to demons. Critics praised the changes made to Shin Megami Tensei 5, especially the bigger areas, which allowed for more entertaining exploration while simultaneously giving the demons enough room to wander around and display their full terrifying glory. The battle system was lauded as well, with each action feeling like it had weight behind it. Many were split on the story of the game, with some enjoying the way lore was doled out in environmental storytelling, while others lamented the pace of new, interesting information. Most agreed that the characters were bland, once again acting more as examples of the various alignments.
See, that's the one thing that I'm like kind of mad at.
Over 1 million copies so far. That only leaves Soul Hackers 2, which is due for release worldwide on August 25th, 2022. How the game turns out is up in the air, but personally, despite no knowledge of the original Soul Hackers, the trailers pulled me in and inspired me to start this retrospective.
Looks...
There's a lot to this franchise, and learning it all has changed my perspective on it considerably. What it means to be a Shin Megami Tensei game is complicated. While the common elements can easily be identified, an all-encompassing title is trickier, as there's nothing equivalent to that in Japanese. Each sub-series is only
Soul Hackers 2, and ladies and gentlemen,
ways, and in some ways,
Soul Hackers 2, the best Vita game Atlus has ever made. Yeah, Vita game is available now on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X. Okay, I asked how this could escalate. All right, so we had to bring it back to the drawing board because I can't be using Google Translate all the damn time. Home, you have an amazing day. I had an amazing day. I watched a girl kill herself.